I'll wear all pink to your white wedding. I'll dance all night and do something upsetting. I'll laugh when you kick me out. It's been the third time already. Running home, I laugh alone. At least I stole the show. Wanna do stupid shit. Gotta admit, I'm a hypocrite. I like it way better than being on the side of it. I'm a psycho, loving it. Wanna do stupid shit. Gotta admit, I'm a hypocrite. I like it way better than being on the side of it. I'm a psycho, loving it. Can't wait to hear what they call me. Call me names and make up all these stories. I would kill for a life that ain't boring. I'm lots of things but not sorry. Running home, I laugh alone. At least I stole the show. Wanna do stupid shit. Gotta admit, I'm a hypocrite. I like it way better than being on the side of it. I'm a psycho, loving it. Wanna do stupid shit. Gotta admit, I'm a hypocrite. I like it way better than being on the side of it. I'm a psycho, loving it. Time of my life, we're all just skeletons, just joining the fight for the adrenaline. The time of my life, we're all just skeletons, just joining the fight, joining the fight. Wanna do stupid shit. Gotta admit, I'm a hypocrite. I like it way better than being on the side of it. I'm a psycho, loving it. Wanna do stupid shit. Gotta admit, I'm a hypocrite. I like it way better than being on the side of it. I'm a psycho, loving it. I'm a psycho, loving it.
Hello, welcome to another Joni Rotten stream. I'm going to share another lecture, but I think you're going to like this one, as it is just as good as the other. This one is by Dr. Charles Morgan, and it is on the psychoneurobiology and war. He's going to talk about some things that they can do, will do, and are already doing. And remember, they're 3 times further ahead advanced than they tell us, and I'm pretty sure they had already divided it by 3, which means they're probably a few hundred years more advanced. This is only what they tell you. Well, what has the military been doing? Anyway, without further ado, I bring you Dr. Charles Morgan.
MWI speaker event for the few that can make it. Today we have Dr. Charles Morgan coming to talk to us about neuroscience and psychology and a whole gamut of things. Right now he is a professor of national security studies at the University of New Haven. His focus is teaching national security studies, domestic and international intelligence analysis, and issues in deception. Dr. Morgan is developing a concentration in the human aspects, intelligence analysis, and psychological operations arenas that are relevant to the intelligence community. He has a pretty robust background with military folks, doing research at SEER School, helping with selection processes for Special Operations Forces down at Fort Bragg, et cetera, et cetera. So without further ado, I will hand it off to you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Actually, I was a Navy guy, I wasn't Army, but I've done more work with the Army, I think, over all these years than I ever did with the Navy. So what I would like to talk to you a little bit about today is something I was asked to do in 2010 and 2011. I was getting ready to leave over at the CIA, where I'd worked for a number of years, and the Intelligence Science Board said, could you give us a brief on what's in store for us in the future? I was like, I don't know, predicting the future is really hard. So I told my boss at the time, I said, well, I think the best I'll do is make an estimate over what I think is going to happen in the next 5 years, given certain technologies that were being developed at the time. And this is a bit of an extension of that. I presented it to the SSG, and it was some information I think some people didn't know, and I think it's good for people to be aware of what's going on out there. The one thing that makes predicting a little bit of the future easier when you look at biomedical science is that labs are working fairly systematically with overtly stated goals. So if you think about it, science is not really done in a haphazard way. It takes time, preparation. You have to test multiple hypotheses, develop techniques. So it is not really rocket science to look at a lab and say, this is where they're going. And here are probably 2 of the Achilles heel points in the design. But if they surmount those, they will probably achieve what they say they want to do. So that's a little bit of what this is about. I was going to give you my thoughts on mind, body, and beyond, gene slicing, Dr. Ventnor's work, DNA encryption, and something about memory, that the past is not what it used to be. What I'd like you to consider for a minute is that one of the things that most people have a hard time understanding is that there is a difference between our mind and our body. Your personal experience is usually of an integrated operating system since the time you were little. However, there has been a plan in many labs to figure out how do we help people whose bodies don't work in the way that they want them to do, who have neurologic defects. Could you start the first video? So as a way of surmounting that, people are experimenting 5 or 6 years ago, or as early as 2008, with whether or not you can do a brain robotic interface. I don't know if there's volume for that.
That we go through with our monkeys as they go through and try to learn how to use this robot. So they're using brain signals, so signals from their motor cortex that we pull out of wires into our system, and our computers then decode what it is that the monkey is intending to do, and drive the endpoint of this arm forward and backward and around through space. The monkeys have brain control over this robotic arm to move it forward and grab a piece of fruit as it's presented, and then bring it back to their mouth to feed themselves.
Incredible as it may seem, these monkeys learned to feed themselves with a robot arm that was being directly controlled by their brains, as if it was simply part of them.
This is a biofeedback closed loop kind of experiment, and that there's an automatic, almost an automatic learning that's going on, where we're communicating with the.
So essentially, when you're little and you're growing up and you're learning how to work your appendages, you are making good motor neuron connections and inhibitory connections. And what they're able to do back in 2008 with a primate is have it learn through trial and error that by thinking, it can move a robotic arm and feed itself. It didn't take too long for the neural interface issue to be resolved once people figured out you could implant electrodes on brain tissue and then take a biological signal and turn it into an electrical signal and amplify it. It took a little while for the monkeys to figure out how to do it. Early on, they would give it a little joystick, so it was like playing a video game. And pretty soon, the monkeys, actually there's a chimp that's done it as well, she figured out she just didn't need to use the little joystick and could just think about it. And then the arm would move, and the monkey would begin to experiment and would think about where it wanted the arm to go. So it was learning I have a new appendage. The same is true in people. As you can see, just 4 years later, we see it being done in humans. You can start that for me, please. With people who have neurologic injury and can't use their limbs. Ooh, I don't know if it'll play. Yeah, try and hover over the screen, I think. There we go. Oh, drag it down. There you go. Perfect. There, it's right there.
My life has changed dramatically since the accident. As of right now, there's nothing to cure paralysis, besides maybe a miracle. The first thing I'd do if I get my arms back, I would hug my daughter. It'd be really nice to scoop something up in a spoon and feed myself again. This is going to go beyond spinal cord if this works. This is going to go MS. This is going to go stroke. This is huge. This is millions and millions and millions of people. I'm pretty much broken from the neck down, I guess you could say. The only thing that I have left that is untouched is my brain. And obviously I'm able to use it very good. I'm able to do this and do that. No memory loss, no nothing. So I opted for an experimental surgery to go at the one thing that I still have.
What we try to do is put a grid in place that's capable of recording signals from the brain. So when you think I want to move, there's actually electrical impulses in the brain. We want to be able to record those electrical impulses and then decode what the electrical impulses mean and use that to control an object or an arm.
That's right.
People have thought for a long time that we might be able to tap into the brain, but it's only recently that we've gotten closer and closer. There's some great work going on here at the University of Pittsburgh by a gentleman named Andy Schwartz. And Andy has shown that he can get a monkey to control a robotic arm with an amazing degree of freedom by thought.
So we've developed technology where we can implant an array of electrodes, microelectrodes, in the cerebral cortex of monkeys. And we can record activity from many neurons in the brain simultaneously. And from that signal, we can extract the monkey's intention to move its arm. And now that we have that, we can intercept that signal and use it, instead of moving the monkey's own arm, to use it to move a prosthetic arm.
Just 2 weeks. I think he said it exercise.
What it takes to
I haven't
get
really-
in people is a large team. So we've basically been somewhat isolated in our laboratory, working on monkeys, proving the technology, just making discoveries, validating the technology, developing new ways of doing this. And what we've been able to do recently is pass a lot of this knowledge that we've gained to clinical colleagues. They came to the laboratory, learned a lot of what we're doing, and then took it back to the clinic and developed the technology that's appropriate for humans.
We were implanting our first patient in a clinical trial to place subdural grids or electrodes on the surface of the brain in an attempt to use them as the brain-computer interface with the ultimate goal of controlling a prosthetic arm. And we'll start out simply with trying to do some pressure control, hoping that over the 28 days that he's implanted, that we will be able to progress to potentially being able to control a robotic arm.
2 days after the surgery, we plugged me in and started to basically train my brain, train the computer to my brain the way I'm thinking. The computer doesn't know up, down, left, right. It just knows the signals that I'm thinking. For the first couple of days, it was just what's up, what's down. How I do it is I look at the ball at the top, and through my peripheral vision, I see the ball that's moving. So I'm focusing on the target. And almost with my peripheral, if I want to go up, I'm with my mental eyes or whatever you want to call it, lifting up, trying to get that ball to go up or trying to get it to go down. So I'm focusing on the target while watching the moving ball with my peripheral. It's like a one-player video game. I'm trying to beat my own score because there is a score, there's a certain percentage. It's out of 6, each time I do it, it's out of 16 balls, if you want to say. And I want to know that number. If it's 13, I want the 14 or I want the 15. And so it's just a challenge to myself. One thing I found out that if I focus too hard, it doesn't work right. It has to be very natural.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, not too bad.
We're making such ground on this every single day. Every other day we're just going leaps and bounds. And knowing that we're doing that, if I had another week or 2 weeks or month, where would we be then? We'd be. I mean, we've already done stuff that's unprecedented. You know, I've been doing stuff. I've been told that with the 3D curse control, people have been doing it for a year, 2 years. That they haven't got the type of control and percentages that I've gotten in a day, literally a day. The highlight was 45 minutes ago. I got to use a robotic arm for the first time, and I got to reach out and touch somebody for the first time in 7 years.
So what you see is people struggled with how to get the electrodes on the surface of the brain, how to do the brain learning. The computer algorithms have improved. This is by trial and error as it begins to recognize what the subject's brain is doing. But after that, if you look at that as a scientific development in medicine, you can quickly see the possibilities that emerge, right? They're playing with motor function and linking it to thought. So the next step, really, when you think about it, was to simultaneously try it with another non-human animal and find out if she could run a robot on the other side of the planet. And the essence of this experiment
I want you to note, he refers throughout this entire lecture, non-human animal. He also says animal a lot. You can do a drinking game with how many times he says animal. And a couple times you can clearly say here that he's a little confused between animal and human, which tells me that he doesn't see any of us as anything more than an animal. Watch him from now on. Take a drink if you like doing such sorts of things. You'll be drunk before it's over. Don't do it. Anyway, drink some water. Puff some herbal refreshment. Every time you hear him say, animal, human animal, enjoy yourself. Continue.
is, at first she had to walk on the treadmill to keep the robot walking that she could observe on the computer screen. And then she just stopped walking and it would run the robot in Japan. So you can have a brain here in the United States plugged in, running a robotic device, a mechanical device via the internet somewhere else in the world. So that was pretty cool. It also has some fun implications. If you see now, where do you imagine this going when you think of it as an offensive or defensive opportunity with respect to the intelligence community? The natural segue then would be, if I can send motor function from a brain to a mechanical arm, is it possible to send motor functions from one human to another human? So I call it the possession experiment. Oh, it's that one, yeah. Just have to hover the, there you go, right there.
For our weekly tech report. Now, do you know the phrase brain power? Well, it turns out that scientists at the University of Washington are trying to hone that power and transmit it to another brain. Researchers call it direct brain-to-brain communication, and they do it by passing a signal from one mind to the next, using the internet nonetheless. So does it sound a little sci-fi, Star Trek mind meld, Jedi mind trick Inception-esque to you? Well, it did to me too. So I brought one of the researchers onto the show to tell me how it works. Dr. Andrea Stocco is an assistant research professor at the University of Washington, and he told me why this concept is not as weird as it sounds.
It's not so science fiction. We use currently existing technologies to read the brain patterns in a person and to transmit them to a different person. And we can only do it with very simple impulses right now, like motor commands, to control the hand, for instance. So it's not that science fiction. It was definitely possible years ago. It's just that we were the first to try it.
Sure. So can you go into a little bit more detail about how specifically it works, what you need from the person, and also what you need from wireless internet to make it come together?
Yes. It works more or less like this. a person is sitting on a chair, and we call this person the first brain or the sender, and is connected to an EEG cap. The EEG cap detects electrical activity all around the brain and is capable of recognizing when the brain patterns are those that a person produces when he's trying to move the right hand or is thinking about moving the right hand. These brain patterns are interpreted by a computer who then controls a second computer who is connected over the internet, and the second computer controls a stimulating coil that produces a magnetic field. And it's the magnetic field that is eventually directed over the head in such a way as to reproduce the particular command in a selected part of the brain. In this case, the part of the brain that controls the right hand. The wireless connection enters only in the communication between the two computers. The two computers can be in the same room and connected physically, or they can be in any part of the world and talking to each other through the internet.
So you can watch the video, but essentially what's happening is when one person is playing the video game, they're not using their hands. They're simply looking at targets. What's going on in the other room is a transcranial magnetic stimulation device that creates a magnetic field that excites neurons. And it's the other man's hand that begins to move and hits the targets. So you've co-opted the portion of a body of another human, and then their hand can behave in the way that you want it to do. His goal, you'll see later if you download the video, is he would like to have a cap that you could put on and have a surgeon direct your hands to do battlefield surgery or something somewhere else in the world where they don't have a doctor who has the technical skills. You can put on the cap and your hands become an extension of that expert's body. The fine motor skill manipulation at that point in time was not great, but the person on the receiving end described the sensation as rather odd. Said, I didn't know anything until I saw my hand beginning to move and felt that it was something other. And its hand was moving, hand could punch in a code, hand could do a number of things. But the really fun part was that you're taking over somebody else's physical body with the mind of another human. So what do you think would be the next step? You follow medical research, you say you can make a robot move, you can make a human hand move. What would you do next? You say, wow, they're getting brains connected to run things. And you have to begin to think either like doctors or like security and intelligence people, right? Can you actually send and receive sensory information like the Matrix? I'll show you a little bit of this experiment. The short answer is yes.
We were able to transmit brain-derived information from one rat to another, and basically got this pair of animals collaborating to solve tactile and motor tasks. There's a behavior box where the first animal is located, and this animal is called the encoder because he's the one who does all the work. He's basically using his forepaws or his whiskers to perform either a motor or a tactile discrimination task. And while he's doing that, we are monitoring its behavior and recording the brain activity that is being produced by this animal's brain and transmitting in real time all these electrical signals to a second animal that is called the decoder. Well, this animal has the lucky job of not having to do anything for getting a reward. The only thing it has to do is to receive this brain activity into its own brain and then decode the pattern of information that the encoder has generated and indicate to us as through behavior what it is that the first animal has discovered out there in the environment. So if the decoder gets it right, both animals get a nice juicy reward, and that's what they want, and that's how they collaborate to actually get this job done. Here you see in the next slide, encoder animal waiting for a light stimulus that tells the animal which of two levers he has to press to get a little bit of a water sip. And the light says either press left or the right lever. So when the animal gets the light and is about to press the lever, we record the activity, electrical activity from lots of cells in the motor cortex of this animal and instantaneously transmit this information through the brain of a second animal that is in another box and cannot see the light and cannot see what the first animal is doing. This is the decoder. and he's receiving this information through very tiny little pulses of electrical activity that are delivered to the homologous part of the brain that the encoder is using to solve the task. So as the decoder gets this information and basically decodes the brain pattern originated in the encoder's brain, it responds to us behaviorally by pressing one or the other lever to tell us that he got it right or not.
So it took some learning trials, but not many. It took 75 between them to achieve an accuracy rate of over 85% in just training the rats for a little while in the cages. But this was a milestone because it was not simply using the motor cortex to run a device. This was actually having one animal learn something and seeing and recording that activity and put it into the sensory cortex of the second animal, and that animal acquires the knowledge. It is able to act on the knowledge from the experience for something it has not ever done, which is really fun when you think about it. Would this facilitate language learning? Would this let you upload information when you don't know how to operate a device? Does it serve well for covert communication? This is done between two rats. What we do know is that DARPA did get permission for 500 operations to do deep brain electrode implants. They haven't published anything yet, but my guess is what you're looking at is human-human thought transference. And certainly in the open science world, that was published last month. Actually, the brain-to-brain transfer of sensory information in two humans, and they achieved a success rate of being right 85% of the time. So you can attach one human brain to a device. You can attach the human brain to another human brain. You can direct motor activity, or you can send communication and information. What we know from the training trial data so far is that it probably requires it'll probably require a training trial between people as well. And we don't know from an encryption and encoding standpoint whether everybody's communication would follow the same patterns or not. It may be that two people have to train and then it's unique, and then you have a decryption problem for someone if they decide they can intercept the signal, right? That would be, but you could plug in somewhere else in the world and learn something or see something or have somebody acquire the information that you have, and you wouldn't have to carry a different device. So that's what people are doing. There's a whole world out there of biohacking. I don't know if you're aware of it, but you should be. So normally at the university, we are well regulated by the federal laws about studying and experimenting on humans. There's a biohacking community that is not part of the official science community that is busy trying to attach hardware to humans, and they do it in their basements. They study up on how to do the surgeries, how to connect devices, how to put motherboards in people. And they may use it for some purposes like fishing, using RFID signals in their hands to take information from you. But there are some other interesting developments. When you start thinking about the fluidity of what you can do with the brain, they're experimenting with CE6 and giving people with eye drops night vision. For several hours, a person receiving the night drops can see over 160 feet in the dark. So it's a lot easier to look through your own eyes than it is to put on nods. And it will be a short time before you get a better solution than we get from the biohacking community, but it could also be readily available to almost anybody on the planet. It's going to be harder to keep this under control than it is to keep the special lenses and night vision technology. So I think it's really important that people pay attention to this kind of a thing, because that can give humans the natural ability for a while to see in the dark. The other new possibility coming along is that seeing in the dark is something you don't really naturally do that well. But with animals, we've been able to achieve a number of other things, one of which is giving them an extra sensory ability, if you will. I'll show you a short clip. People decided they wanted to know if they could give the rat an ability to do something it does not naturally have.
Recently, researchers have given rats an implant which allows the animal to obtain, as they call it, a sixth sense. The laboratory subjects were able to search and detect infrared lights, which is an exceptional accomplishment given that rats cannot normally see infrared lights. A team at Duke University placed infrared detectors which were wired up to tiny electrodes into the part of their brains that processes tangible information. A source involved with the experiment, Eric Thompson, states, "This is the first paper in which a neuroprosthetic device was used to augment function, literally enabling a normal animal to acquire a sixth sense. Researchers claim that the device could also help humans regain sight if placed in the appropriate part of the brain. Last year, researchers used a computer chip-ridden prosthetic system to help transmit light signals in the brains of mice. The minds behind the study hope to move on to human trials using the retinal device to restore sight to those who had lost their vision.
So people are playing with chemicals to enhance the human capacity. They're also experimenting now with how do you add a device to the mammalian brain to give it an extra sensory ability. You may not want to detect infrared. You might want to have a room temperature detector of radiation, depending on what your job is in life. So when you think about it, the possibility now is there to develop different kinds of devices. They could be perhaps used either by intelligence people or by people in the military to have an extra ability to be able to see through walls, to see heartbeats. We used to play with the 18 gigahertz microwave detectors where we could pick up heartbeats through anything but solid steel and water, but that could easily be a human who can see the unique heartbeat that's behind the wall over there that's thermal insensitive. So it doesn't have to be IR. It can be a number of things. Anything that you can co-opt is theoretically now possible to adapt to human brain functioning. All you'd have to learn is the code. You'd have to train with it. It might not be natural at first. You might not understand the signal you're getting, but you can add to human brain function. You can also use it to intercept signals. The experiment that was just released this last month, as I said, demonstrated that people could transfer knowledge from one human to another. And I commented to a couple of my colleagues and I said, I think right now the most direct application of that is going to be either covert communication or running drones. The set of experiments, I didn't have videos to show you, but there have been a series that have shown you can connect the human brain to a rat and control its motor movement and its tail. So you can have non-human animal drones. You can have the human brain probably run a regular drone at this point, but running a non-human drone, something like a cockroach or a rat, would it be awesome. And now if you were watching the Olympics and you see the coordinated maze of drones, the software is now really readily available where you could have hordes of little creatures that can gain access to facilities or move around in different places, all run by a person sitting in a booth. It's no more technically challenging once you do that than figuring out the logistics of how you're going to send your signal somewhere else in the world and how to protect that signal. But that's now, that's not in the future. So as you begin to think what's in 5 years, the interfaces are going to become more delicate, more refined, and as transcranial magnetic stimulation, it's a rather crude instrument right now. It creates a field that excites just hordes of neurons. But as they refine the technology so you can get a better point specificity to the neurons you actually want to activate, you should be able to do this without penetrating the skull. Either someone could wear a cap, and in fact, that's how the latest brain-to-brain communication in humans was done. It was done without surgery and actually signaling via some stimulation to the retina and the brain decoding it. Although the person consciously didn't know what the code was, the brain did. So that I would recommend people becoming aware of that from the human drone technology standpoint. The second field that people may or may not be aware of, I always tell my students, I said I wasn't around when they developed atomic weapons, but Dr. Ventnor's work is my view, the equivalent of the development of nuclear weapons when you realize that he created life in a cell back in 2010. I don't know if people are familiar with his work, but this technology paired with something called CRISPR, which is like an editing software for genes, makes a number of things immediately available. What he did is he programmed yeast cells to produce anything he wanted. They can produce perfume, they can produce petroleum, they can produce any peptide, anything we program the DNA to do, and it's in the living cell. Right? So in medicine, the goal in medicine now is to be able to do designer medicine and therapy. If we can design a cell to get into your body and release the right product for you, you won't be losing half the drugs you take through your liver when you swallow a pill and it gets digested. These can be inserted into you through the hypospray needles, almost like Dr. McCoy on Star Trek, giving you the hyperspray. It just blasts now plasmids into your squamous cells. But Ventnor was able to do that and has the patent on the technology. But you can engineer anything. You can engineer a unique thing that would only kill one person in the world. It's how it's done. You put in a specific gene slicing, you program what you like, you put it in the cell, and it can reproduce and make as much as you like.
Okay, you hear what it's saying. So now, let me pull up that article again. Is it in here? Give me a second. There it is. Okay, hang on. I got it now. So let me swap my screen because this is what it made me think of. So I shared this earlier today, but it made me think of this article, what he's talking about. I've talked about this before many times because there's a lot of research that talks about designer vaccines, designer illnesses made specially just for you. And when I read something like this, and then I remember how they wanted to get all of the minorities and the blacks and the this, that, and the other, it makes me wonder what phase they're going through, each of these phases. Anyway, this came out. This was an error in the health department, says Sydney private school students given Pfizer vaccine by mistake. They weren't actually. The Pfizer vaccine was given. It was an error has led to the entire year 12 cohort. So not a few students like they had planned. The mistake inoculated the entire year 12 instead of just the Aboriginal students. Now, that guy just said that he could do with a CRISPR and with this and with that, specifically targeting just one, he says, can program it into the cell and just one person would die, or maybe a group of people. Maybe it's designed for the old people or the middle class men, or maybe the working class. Maybe it's for women. Maybe they want to get all the minorities. Maybe they're after natives. Maybe they're after you. Who knows? He said they can do it. He works for the military. So I'll show you this right here. This is on Modern War Institute's channel. And this is from 2018. Oops, sorry, here, justice for mistake. Yeah. Oops. Hey, Maso. So let me go back. Let me keep playing this now. I just want to share with you that article. Oops. And then I also have more articles. There's more than enough real research papers that say exactly what this man is saying. And that's a scary thing because we're not being told these things. And yet he just told me that they could do in 2018, 4 years ago, exactly what I'm seeing happening right now. So it makes me wonder. So,
specific gene slicing, you program what you like, you put it in the cell, and it can reproduce and make as much as you like. For those of you who don't know, your DNA is usually all wrapped up in tight little coils, And so what you're doing was when they create plasmids and put them into cells, it sends a signal and tells which portion of the DNA should unwrap, unfold, and produce a product. So this is the future of medicine. When you look at this technology in medicine and say, this is going to be done to help people, right? We want to be able to give them medicines. We actually want to correct for genetic deficits. If a kid's born with a genetic anomaly, with the CRISPR technology, the feeling is we can create the portion of the gene they're missing and go have it spliced back in. And that may help a child, either if it's in utero development or once they're older, to have the missing substance actively produced. What would you do with this if you were in security and intelligence? Well, you can do a number of things. You could decide, if you make this gene, we know that certain people in the world who function at very high altitudes very, very well do it because they had a special mutation in their genome that we don't have because we didn't grow up in the Himalayas, but they can function at very high altitudes. Could you give this to people who are going to have to do warfighting in high altitudes and they don't require extra support? Their body makes a much more efficient use and can work under conditions of lower oxygen than the rest of us. You start letting your mind wander. Can it also produce a substance that lets you function longer underwater without oxygen? So, but these are run by certain mutations in genes, and with CRISPR, we have the ability to actually make these and see what happens when we give them to animals, non-human or human animals, that don't have it naturally. You could have the Forrest Gump gene. You guys have been tracking. There's a gene that just makes you stronger. I would say that most of this technology is probably going to be employed by a state and not non-state actors because it's quite technical. But I say that with a caveat. When we studied Shinrikyo, if people remember, they had both uranium mines and regular laboratories where they experimented on both animals and had a whole series of laboratory experiments to develop the different kinds of gases.
Did you hear that? He says when they experimented on both animals and they developed different types of gases. He's going to say humans. He meant to say they experimented on both animals and humans, but he knows he's not supposed to say that because it makes people worry. So he's supposed to just say animals and oops, Freudian slip. Keep going. What are you? What was your name again? Charles. Charlie. Go, Charlie. Go, Charlie. Go.
That they wanted. Their goal was to actually mine uranium and probably come up with their own version of a nuclear weapon. But they recruited scientists, PhD level folks, and their goal was to be the rightful people running the country of Japan. But we can't assume that just because they're non-state actors, they will not make use of some technology around this. Related to this is an idea called DREADS. These are designer receptors that can be remotely controlled. So think about it for a moment. You can create a designer receptor, you can create a cell, you can put it somewhere in the body, and you can remotely activate it when the brain's exposed to the right signal. Using this technology, people have been able to transfer memories from one fruit fly to another by signaling through a light stimulus into the retina. Right now, in most animals, it's done by putting a substance into their body that will actually activate the neuron in the way that you want it. So you have the capacity to create any product. As long as you know the DNA sequence, you can insert it into a living system and you can remotely control it. So in medicine, we think about how we do that to help people, how we do to repair deficits. Other people are going to think about how do they do it to expand possibilities. And one of the challenges that we have is that when you create a cell and you put it in somebody's body, you have to figure out where you want it. What if you want it in their brain? Right? If you want it in their brain and you can't figure out, you don't want to do surgery to plant it in their brain. If I want a product produced in your brain that may affect the way you think, the way you act, one route to that is through stem cells. If you're A quick brush up on your biology. Stem cells are cells. They call them God cells. They can turn into anything. They hold the potential, unlike other cells in your body, to become anything you want them to become. And they can go find their home in the body and park there and do the work that you'd like them to do. You can infuse them and they will find their way into the brain. So once you know that the technology is there to edit, splice, and program a cell, and the technology currently exists to administer it to somebody and have it go park anywhere you program it to go park, proliferate, and do its function, you can have things activated in other people's brains. So if you take these 3 key points, hopefully you can see it opens up a number of both alarming and exciting possibilities. You can have the timed release of information on demand. Hopefully, when I mentioned the word CRISPR and word editing and creating molecules with CRISPR out of and playing with DNA, some of you thought encryption and encoding. So DNA encryption, there were, I think, 8 articles published by China in the course of 3 years, in the last 3 years. And it's quite important. The coding system, DNA steganography, I'll just say the short story on this is people have figured out how to hide imagery in the DNA of bacteria. And when you phosphoresce the bacteria, you can discover the information, or you can have those are just to remind me, you can have the information reproduced in a string form as a form of a protein. Dr. Church up at Harvard has shown quite well that you can store a lot of information in 1 gram of DNA. It's essentially, yeah, that many iPads in 1 gram at room temperature. No supercooling required. DNA is highly stable. It's been around on the planet a very long time. So between CRISPR, the storage capacity, and programming cells, the new way to hide information is going to be in DNA. The commercial application is going to be a bit like on Star Trek years ago. Why would you have a digital system when you can have a DNA system? You can store all the information you'd ever need, records, photos, anything. It's simply another way of storing information. It had just been so slow up until 5 years ago, it wouldn't be thought to be practical. But it is. This is the first experiment showing what imagery you can hide in bacteria. This is the latest.
Okay, so here I found an article for what he's talking about, that DNA steganography, hiding undetectable secret messages within a single nucleotide, polymorphosis of genome at detecting mutation-induced errors. It's from 2020. The cell engineering technology advances more complex synthetically designed cells, and metabolically engineered cells are being developed. Engineered cells are important resources in industry. Similar to an image watermarking, engineered cells could be watermarked for protection against improper use or to identify you and whatever else other weird things they might have in mind for you. You can only imagine. So methodology was developed to hide messages in variable regions, single nucleotide polymorphosis, of the genome to create hidden messages and thereby prevent from hacking. Additionally, unless you get the, unless you have the equipment, I mean, still, what do you mean hacking? Additionally, to detect errors or mutations within the encrypted message, a blocksum check algorithm was employed, similar to that used in network data transmission to detect noise-induced information changes. No, don't do that. You're in a good place. Don't feel like that. We love you here, Class Clown. We like Class Clowns. Oops is trying to be a god. Thank you. Hello, Alice. Welcome. Okay. I'm glad you're here, baby. All right, so it says this DNA steganography methodology could be used. I said that, didn't I? All right. And so there's lots of information on this. In fact, you can just kind of go back here and search for scholarly articles, and look, you get a whole bunch of them going back. Look at the years on these: 2013, 2012, 2011, 2010, 2000. You can go back. They've been working on this stuff for quite a long time. They don't want you to know. Yeah. Zuckerberg. So I wanted to share that with you just so that you could see that what he's talking about is some real junk. And then let's see. Towards, I'll show you some other things. Okay. Here's another one that I found real interesting to consider looking up. So this one was, oops, no. I know what I'll do here. Where are you? Okay. This is from the Frontiers in Neuroscience. This is from 2019. And it's multi-person brain-to-brain interfaces, ethical issues. The Center for Studies of Ethics in the Professions, Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago. While the idea of a network of brains directly communicating via brain-to-brain interfaces, or the BBIs, may sound like science fiction to some, it actually is not. BBIs allow for mediated direct communication between two brains without involving the peripheral nervous system. They consist of two components: a brain-computer interface, or BCI, that detects neural signals from one brain and translates them to a computer command, and the computer-brain interface, or the CBI, that delivers computer commands to the other brain. Hey, Gabby! In a recent publication, presented the first multi-person, non-invasive, direct BBI in which three persons use the interface called BrainNet to solve a task resembling a Tetris game collaboratively. I think that's what, no, he didn't talk about that one, but he had some. Anyway, there's a lot of information about that there. This was another one I found interesting. This is Cipher Brief. Neurotechnology, the national defense, the U.S. and China. This is a little scary. So the bottom line up front, it says, China is better posed to capitalize on disruptive technologies like brain-computer interfaces, BCI, for both civilian and military usage. So the U.S. must be prepared for the deployment of these capabilities in the future operating environments. Okay, let me just start. First of all, the U.S. must be prepared. Okay, if China is the country that is making all of our electronics, and they are working on brain-computer interfaces, which use electronics, it's my opinion that we probably shouldn't be letting them do that if we're worried about it. I'm just asking a question. Hey, squirrels. Non-invasive. In the past decades, that's what tells me this is all a lie. There's no war with China. They're our friends, not our enemies. They're there. their allies, not my allies. Clearly, they're not our friends, the government. And I believe they've already done this kind of shit to the people of China, and that's why we have such weird things coming out of there. Don't believe those people are actually running. I've got some other things. This really sent me down some crazy ideas. So in the past decade, seven international actors have launched brain projects or brain initiatives, including the United States and China. The U.S. Brain Initiative started in 2013 under, guess what, the Obama administration, and includes plans for $6 billion of funding through the year 2025. The China Brain Project was announced 3 years later in 2016, along with the country's 13th five-year plan. 13th, Jesus Christ, get out of here. And you're starting in 13 and you're $6 billion. Oh my. Plan of estimated funding of $1 billion. I don't want to pay for that. I don't think I should be paying for that. I'm not okay with my money being spent on this, especially since you also tell me China's my enemy and then you are letting them make the very things that they could use to control us. Sounds kind of fishy. So these brain initiatives which invoke stakeholders from government, academia, military, and industry, and direct hundreds of millions of dollars to specific research goals can be used as cohesive articulations of the National Strategy for Neuroscience Research. The outcomes of these initiatives will not only further our understanding of the brain, but will also enable new neurotechnologies that have far-reaching implications for society, public health, and of course, don't forget their national security, because they don't want you to retaliate or rebel. So they got to get you under control before you grow up and you realize that mommy and daddy government cannot keep you from sneaking out your window. The United States and China are among the largest spenders in their brain projects and are peer economic and military competitors. What does that mean? Suck. They're Hoovers. The U.S. National Defense Strategy in 2018 highlighted long-term strategic competition with China as a top focus. This competition will naturally include vying for technological advance, especially with emerging technologies like those enabled by the Brain Project to avoid technological surprise. Here, the specific focus on brain-computer interface within the broader category of neurotechnologies is due to their potential for high adoption by healthy people. Notice that they use that. It's due to the potential for high adoption by healthy people. They know you're going to want it for both civilian and military purposes. Additionally, because who doesn't want to get better hearing and sonic vision and live longer and not have to be paralyzed and be able to voice and drag in themselves with their voice to text? Additionally, and then, brain to brain. These devices have profound ethical concerns involving data privacy and individual autonomy. And if you know, one of our fears in elementary school, the fear we must conquer being preschool and elementary school before we go on to high school, the next one is the fear of the loss of autonomy, which we're getting a big healthy dose of. And next is going to be the fear of rejection. And that's when you're going to start to see your social scores. That is because human beings are, in fact, growing up in that way, and we're going from one into the other. Likely for these reasons, the U.S. Congressional Research Service identified brain-computer interfaces as an emerging dual-use technology that should be considered for export controls. China has a clear articulation of the intent to use BCIs for both their civilian and military purposes. Well, isn't that a surprise? The goals of the brain initiatives in each of these nations are an articulation of National Strategy for Neuroscience Research and Technology Development, and the U.S. Brain Initiative and the China Brain Project contrast strongly in their aims. The China Brain Project stated goals place a higher emphasis on brain-machine technologies like BCI than on the U.S. Brain Initiative. The U.S. Brain Initiative's seven major goals only relate to understanding the brain and improving to treatment of brain disorders. Oh, we're the good guys, y'all. We're trying to help people and focus on developing technologies that will enable basic research and clinical application. But the China's project structure is envisioned as a one body, two wings. Jesus. A cross with a core body of understanding the brain and the equal emphasis on the applications, the two wings of treating brain disorders and developing brain-machine intelligent technologies. The contrast in the U.S. Brain Initiative and the China Brain Project put an equal emphasis on clinical and non-clinical applications of brain research and specifically emphasizes integrating brain and machine technology. Brain and machine. And the China Brain Project's goal also more strongly aligned with the military rhetoric of the PLA than the U.S. Brain Initiative's goal, due with the U.S. military's active neurotechnology research initiatives. And so the DoD has extensively funded neuroscience research, but the divergence aims from the U.S. Brain Initiative. DARPA has several ongoing programs developing neurotechnologies like next generation or X generation. Let's see what that is. Oh, looky there. Ooh. For diverse national security. They seek to develop non-invasive BCIs with the ability to both read and write brain activity for use by healthy military service members. What exactly does that mean? A neural engineering systems design program which seeks to develop BCI to restore vision and hearing to injured service members. Look at that. Of course, it's their fault their service members were injured in the first place, which puts these China Brain Project and the U.S. Brain Initiative goal as, in fact, another proof that these people suffer from Munchausen by proxy. They like to make you sick, and then they want to make you feel better. And then they get all the reward and the attention that everyone gives them when they finally succeed. So anyway, this article, I'll put the link in if you want to finish reading this. Might send you down some rabbit holes. Again, I just read things and then I come across something. I go, what the fuck is that? And then there you go. So let's see. What's another one that I can show you? This one's another one. This is just a search. So you do brain-to-brain transfer military technology. This is what you end up with. Literally just pages and pages and pages. Why scientists are working, how to influence future wars. Okay. We are actually in a war. They predicted a war in 2020, and yet we have no war. I don't see it. I hear rumors of wars. I'm not seeing a war like I always have in the past. The book Generational Studies by Neil Strauss and how? Well, they say we should be having a war right now. So does everyone else that studied history and patterns in history all agree. And in 2020, we should be having a war. But I don't see a war unless this is in fact the war. And that's what I'm suggesting. So I'm going to go back to play some more of this video. And then we'll listen to it a little bit longer. And then I'll share with you a few more tabs that go along with it as well. And yeah, there's some interesting things in here. All right, here we go.
It's a GIF file. It was actually programmed into the DNA of bacteria.
I forgot. That what he was talking about. I got sidetracked on time. Oh, I didn't. I wanted to pull up a bunch at once so I could keep it playing for long periods of time. But I forgot to mention this part. So the putting this GIF file into the DNA and the virus, not virus, a bacteria. They put it on a bacteria on the skin. He's going to describe that. And what was the thing from earlier? I can't remember now. I'll try to find it. That's important because that bacteria plays a huge role in some other things. And maybe he talks about in this one, I'm not exactly sure, but there's a second connection to the bacteria being used as a biological weapon. So just bacteria can be used as a biological weapon. It can also be used as something to store information on. So anyway, I'll keep going now. I'll shut up. All right, here we go.
Last year, the bacteria reproduced, and the offspring from the reproduction cycle would still produce this movie. Pretty cool. You can hide information in bacteria. And when the bacteria multiply, they can go into a spore form and last for a very long time. No one can scan you and find a bacteria. We don't have anything that can detect that. So if you want to be able to encode information, take pictures of information, create something in DNA and don't want it in your own body, it can be bacteria on some portion of your body, right? All they have to do is scrape it, let it grow in the Petri dish, and unpack the information. This is all available now. This isn't science fiction, but you
now
can encode movies.
And that was 2018. It's
Well, this is
available
what the
now.
Chinese are doing with DNA.
It's already been available.
So in your own neck of the woods, you can begin inquiring. We are doing things with DNA as well, but the Chinese are fairly convinced that DNA encryption and encoding would be one tremendous challenge even for quantum computing. So this is where the race is right now, trying to merge quantum computing with what you call a wet hard drive with DNA. Merging DNA systems with quantum computing will be really quite an amazing and both lethal threat for that. The next thing I wanted to mention to you is memory. Can you play this one really quick? Hopefully you'll recognize this.
Hey, whoever you guys are, you're gonna have to show me some idea if you're gonna be in this. Hey, whoever you guys are, you're gonna have to... Hey, whoever you guys are, you're gonna...
Would you stop that? What? That thing is gonna give her brain cancer or something.
Hey, whoever you guys are, you're gonna...
So what to do with memory? In medicine, we think of memory as a potentially harmful thing when people present with post-traumatic stress disorder. They can't stop thinking about the thing that's creating emotional distress. It's a very active development in the field to figure out, can we erase memory? Can we modify memory? Can we change memory? The short answer is yes. Several years ago, with the KM-Zeta data out of Duke University, this was the first time that anyone had ever demonstrated that if you wash an area of the brain called the hippocampus, it's an area of our brain that's crucial for forming short memories, spatial memories, and then facilitating the transfer from a short-term memory to something that's more permanent and stable over time, that he could train the mice to run the maze, document the number of trials and errors, and then flood their hippocampus or expose it to this, and the memory would be completely gone. Meaning when the rats or the mice had to learn it over again, it was the same number of learning trials. And there was no trace of the memory left. Now the good news for us when we study rats and mice is we put electrodes and cannulae into their brain and can directly affect that area of the brain. If you wanted to poke your own hippocampus, you'd have to stick your finger through your eye and go right back in there. Sounds impossible to get to, not if you program a cell to go there. So if you decide you wanted to program something that would selectively release PKM zeta after your meeting with someone, they probably would have no memory of it. That's what's happening in the rats, right? So the technical challenge right now is, how do we get a cell in there to do that in human? I can assure you they're working on that in non-human primates right now. How many, what's the point specificity? Can we get it in there close enough to the hippocampus? Will those cells start reproducing in the next day, make enough of that stuff to wipe out a memory? Related to this, once you start thinking about memory, are chemicals that not only wipe out memory, but chemicals that enhance it. So if you want a better human camera, a better, an individual who can just go see and remember everything, that's the direction that the research in this lane is taking to help.
Okay, what's interesting about that, when you said the hippocampus, now I know we're a bunch of, put on your tinfoil hat for a minute, but not too long ago, we were looking at stuff that was suggesting that quite possibly they were, the tests and maybe some other things were heading towards certain parts of the brain and so forth and so on, making it look like little, do you remember that? It was all over the channels, or not the YouTube. Now, whether or not any of that was true, but the thing is, it doesn't matter. Quite amazingly, someone's came up with it, and if we've come up with it, they've come up with it, and so didn't seem too completely far-fetched, especially since I've read plenty of articles and research coming from their own mouths that say they can do all these things. It's not too hard to think that they wouldn't. I don't really get how people can be so naive to think that they won't use these things on us. Why are they making them? They say to protect me from China because China's making them to protect themselves from us. But the only people that are going to be using this or getting this done to them are, in fact, the citizens. And why are they wanting to do that in the first place? You know what I'm saying? Like when we all got nuclear weapons, well, we stopped. We stopped making nuclear weapons, right? And we said, all right, it's a check. We're at a check. We're at a standstill. You blow me up, I blow you up. These guys are talking about doing something completely different. They're talking about controlling their citizens with and then we got 5G coming in here. And I mean, there's just so many things that regardless of how rational I try to make them out in my mind, I can only think of nefarious reasons. And I'm living in a world where it feels like most of the people, the media, the most people, the mass of the peak, the largest group, the beings, the human beings. That group right there, they go, no, they wouldn't do that to us. Our governments wouldn't do that to us. We're their people. We're their peeps. But I'm American. I got a flag in my yard. What are you talking about? The truth is, that is what they're doing. Why else would they do it? No other reason. I can't think of one. So it just really makes me question. And if anything you're not sure about, I'll find you the papers. Everything this is military. This is in fact what they're doing in our militaries right now. There's about 14 more minutes left of this, and then we'll go through some other stuff, and then I might try to convince you that Billie Eilish is not real, and maybe a few others. So, yeah, I don't even know what to say. It leaves you kind of speechless. But why does everybody think these people are trying to save them? They're sticking things up your nose that some of us in this room may believe are targeting your brain. And I just heard them say that they could, in fact, kill one person with the CRISPR and the bacteria. So I'm just thinking, wow, okay. All right, back to it. Another 14 minutes of hell. Let's see what they have in mind for us now.
People with Alzheimer's, how to give them memory back. So what's being actively studied are the few people on the planet who have hypermnesia. In other words, they remember everything that's ever happened to them. We're actively trying to understand how to unlock that and unpack that and figure out why it is their memory does seem to record and they retain everything they've seen. They don't find it pleasant, and medicine would like to, people in medicine want to try and understand that so they can turn it into something beneficial for people who are losing memory. From a security and intelligence standpoint, it is a really unique opportunity to begin to discover, can you administer a drug that enhances human memory for a certain number of hours? Does it have to be permanent? So rather than carrying technical toys somewhere to try and record and collect information, your brain just remembers it, which doesn't give anybody anything really to detect. So that's one potential use for it, and that is one lane of research that's going on. That was just my picture to remind me that The Man Who Knew Too Much, if you remember the old Hitchcock film, essentially that's what he'd done. Remember, is memorize all the steps on how to make a bomb. He'd remembered the codes, he'd remembered everything. That research on hypermemory has gone more slowly than I thought in 2010. I thought by about 2015 there would be some progress. There hasn't been much yet in expanding memory very much. It seems to be a harder nut to crack than erasing memory. Erasing memory seems to be far easier. The last topic I wanted to review with you is memory.
Okay, so here's where I started thinking. I didn't necessarily pull up tops but when he says it's far easier to erase memory, and partially we know that because stressful situations or traumas can cause your mind to forget things. That's why you might have certain memories of something, but not the full memory. You're going to keep parts of it different. But so him saying that's easier to erase memories, I can bring you some ways through hypnosis, the science of hypnosis, the science of suggestion, which is in fact what they use when they sell you products. They're using that very science of suggestion and hypnosis. And so when they can easily erase your memories, it is not too hard for me to throw an idea that, just in general, my computer does a flashy thing. Maybe I don't remember if it's Berenstein or Berenstein. That's exactly the phenomenon that I thought of when I was listening to that. Was that a thing that they did to certain people? These ideas of whatever they call it, alternate universes, and where some of us just popped into this timeline from some random universe somewhere. I'm not even joking about that. That's what those scientists actually believe. I've heard Tyson DeGrassi, or whatever the fuck his name is, with his 20 degree, him say such ridiculous things. And what I think more likely is the case is that they ran an experiment to see how many people they could get to remember, whether or not it was an I, an E, or an I. Was it blue? Was it red? Half the world thinks one thing, half the population thinks something else. Flashy things, a computer screen. It just does. My light bulbs flash. Those LED lights, they do weird flashy things. And everybody says, well, that's okay. There's just a surge in the electricity, and that's why it's doing that. Okay. Why are they surging my electricity then? Because I already know that if you give me the right pattern of lights, I can have a seizure. Anyone can. You can give anyone a seizure. You can break glass with the right sound. You can give a seizure with the right lights. There's phototherapy for trauma and PTSD. Phototherapy. There's a whole industry on using flashing lights to help you with your depression. on your and your illness, that comes with that. So it's not a leap. It's not a leap what he just said. It's easier to remove a memory. They can also plant them in. They can also implant them. So, but that's a little bit harder, so he says. That goes on to hypnosis and suggestions. So there's science behind that as well. Okay, just thought that was interesting. Wanted to tell you the thoughts that I had when I was listening to him, and he's showing the flashy things, and then he says such things. And then I think of these scientists that go on, the BBC, and tell me, oh, there's alternate dimensions, and we slide and slip, and you sound ridiculous, and that makes no sense. Makes more sense that you would do an experiment, flashy face people, so that you could convince them of something that's not true. A manipulation. There are no monsters or demons. Or aliens. There's only humans that can convince you of aliens and things as well. And I do have other lectures on such weapons. So I'll share those another time. Anyway, back to it's far easier. Don't want to review your memory. So here we go.
I don't know if you recognize any of the imagery up there, but I'll walk you through it. With memory, in the last 5 years, what's been demonstrated is that you can train a fruit fly around an aversive experience, and you can transfer that memory to the brain of another fruit fly by manipulating the rods. And it gives it a memory for something that it's never had before, and then it reacts to the stimulus in the same way as the animal who did have the aversive learning experience. It's been done in mice. I'll talk a little bit about what Beth Loftus and I have done to men and women going through SEER school and changing memory. And I put the last slide up because this is in flatworms, and this came out 2 years ago, that memory really is something beyond what we typically understand in flatworms. You can cut their head off and their body still remembers stuff.
Okay, now that makes me think of cryogenically frozen things, where they cryogenically freeze things to hold. They can cut the body off. They're trying these types of things. Why are they cutting these little worms in half all the time and knowing whether or not they remember things? And why are they lopping their heads off and freezing them? Just made me ask some questions. That's all. Yeah, well, I've asked that question too, aka Zinsomniac. Yes, okay, here we go.
So they're just beginning to uncode or decode where and how is memory stored in the body of this little creature, so we can translate that into memory in animals that look different than that little creature. It's evolved it for a very interesting reason.
He said for animals that look different from that creature. Now, there's only one animal that I can think of that would be different from that creature that would matter whether or not we remember. And that's where I told you, I said at the beginning of this video, listen to this little fuck stick, because he keeps referring to us as, in fact, the animals. And there's one of them Freudian slips yet again, where he says animals that don't look like this. You mean humans, Charles? Charlie, Chucky? Do you mean human beings? That's what you should have said, you dick stick. Anyway, continue, Charlie.
So this is in 2009 using light. They've transferred memory. You can turn things on and off using light in animals to activate the hippocampus, turn memory on and off. And so where are we with humans in creating false memories, giving them memories that they've never had? We've come a long way. My colleague is Beth Loftus. This was her early work. It was called Lost in a Mall. And what she did is she asked a person to be in the study. You could be in her study if you had a sibling that was at least 5 years older than you. And she'd say, we're interested in your memory from when you were a kid. I've asked your older sibling, your older brother or sister, to give me 4 stories about you, and I want to know how much you remember. What people didn't know is that there were 4 different stories. One of them was fake, and she wanted to see how long it would take for them to adopt a false memory. The quick answer is after 2 interview sessions, 30% of the subjects believed that they remembered the person who'd found them when they were lost at a mall, and actually argued with the researcher about whether or not the memory was true or not. And that's how I met her. And we decided to get together and run up to Brunswick to SEER School and try a memory experiment. This is our design. If you're not familiar with SEER, there's a classroom phase, there's an experiential phase. We were interested in sampling people when they were in isolation, when they were returning their gear, and at the end. And we tried a couple of different techniques. Group 1, there's no misinformation. We simply want to sample accuracy of human memory for their experience. And we told them at the beginning of SEER, we want you to be the best little human collector possible. We are going to quiz you about your memory. Don't let us trick you. We want to know what you remember. Group 2, we told them the same thing, but we lied. When they took their questionnaire at the end, we incorporated several techniques from false memory techniques, which are a little bit of leading questions to see whether or not we could create false memories. In the third group, we exposed them to an erroneous photograph of their interrogator. And in group 4, we used the video. So here's what we did. By exposing them to a photograph after they had been interrogated and placed in isolation stress, it could change them from this guy to this guy 48 hours later on who they would identify in the lineup. Their level of confidence was an 8 out of 10, that was the person they had met. We found out we could make them believe that there were guns, that there were knives, that there were caches of weapons, simply by altering the phrasing of a question or inserting something into a video. I'll give you an example. If we said, did your interrogator wear a weapon? If so, please describe it. We only got about a 2% endorsement of the presence of a weapon in the interrogation phase. If we said, when you were being interrogated by your interrogator and the guy with the weapon interrupted the interrogation, what did they argue about? We didn't care what the answer was. We'd ask another question. Describe the weapon worn by your interrogator. It jumped to 30%, would tell us the type of firearm that they had seen in the interrogation booth, which is a security violation, right? There weren't any. We got to record them. But with one question, we could do that. When you sample with a few more, you can actually increase the sample. So when we increased the stress at SEER, we found that instead of a 30% rate overall, we could create false memories in nearly everyone. That was in 900 people. So Beth and I were talking about that. We said, well, you can change memory. We know that. It's a way of understanding maybe why and how people have recovered memories of abuse that never happened. That's what her work has mainly been about. So she decided to do a study called Licked by Pluto. She decided she couldn't make Mickey Mouse a sex offender, but in her lab, they thought Pluto was fair game. The short story is they were exposed to some misinformation about a man who had dressed in the Pluto outfit at Disney, and he'd been inappropriately rubbing his large fabric tongue on children, pleasurably and not pleasurably. There were 2 different conditions, and there was a neutral condition. If people adopted the false memory and their memory was for something negative, they did not want to buy the Pluto toy, right? When they went down their list, what they would not buy. She's done it with food. That was from her series with Alan Alda. She gave him a false memory that he'd been sick one time eating deviled eggs. And here they offer him one at the picnic on film, and you get the classic disgust wrinkle. And he said, no, I got sick one time eating them. It's not a true memory, it was planted. She's done it now with strawberries and ice cream, also done it with pickles, and has done it with alcohol. A study last year was that if you give college students the false memory that they were terribly hungover, they had a wicked hangover from drinking too much tequila, then when they're given free range options at the bar, like a week later, they decline it at twice the rate of everybody else. They go, nah, I got sick doing that. So think about it. If you change the past, you change human behavior. We are a case-based reasoning animal. When we think about what we're going to do, we think about the last time we did something, or what we heard about, or what we think it would have done. So to change human motivation, we don't have to persuade people. You can just change their memory. Think about the defensive and offensive capabilities of that. If you think about this from a defensive standpoint, you have the ability to change the memory of a person who's been
I just want to pause this right here to read this little thing behind him. So why does it matter? Entirely false memories can be created. recent and remote memories that is genuine is vulnerable to substantial manipulation and modification. Humans use case-based reasoning when selecting a course of action, and changing the past changes the future. It can just start deleting it. Put all of our pictures and stuff on these computers. They can erase you, which is a very narcissistic thing to do. And I do have some narcissistic stuff. Stick with me. Here's it saying that, Alice. And I'm glad you're here. Is it Bouquet, Samuel? Am I saying that correctly? Welcome to the rotten ones. And the current social medic, there are defensive and offensive implications, he says. Well, that says a lot. And let's keep going, shall we?
Briefed in a safe house about the identities of who they met, the layout. So we've looked at altering memory for floor plans, for faces, for timing. If they're wrapped up by their intelligence service, they don't have anything to lie about, or what they remember is actually genuine, but it's wrong. That might be a defensive way of applying the technique. In medicine, people are arguing about whether or not you can use false memories to help people. Can I give you a false memory that leads you to stop smoking, or is it unethical? Because I can't tell you I gave you a false memory. I'd have to do it outside of your permission for your good. Most of us think it's probably unethical. In the society we live in, we think you probably should be an informed consumer, but it's a possibility that you can do. And when I think about this, I think about its relevance in this day and age when you start wondering what information is real and what information is trustworthy. And you start running into people and debriefing them, and you have sources who claim things. When you can learn how to create false memories, a person can be genuine, and the information they remember is the old dangle idea. You can put information out that's simply not true. But in the current social media age, the ability to actually manage people's memories and change them is just enhanced compared to what it used to be. Now you can fix videos and pictures and expose people to audio and visual information, and we know that even if they know that's a possibility, people don't recognize when they adopt a false memory. It's a bit of a Trojan horse effect. You don't know that it's happened to you, and if you're smart and you have a good memory, you'll believe that happens to other people, but not you, because your memory is true. So it bypasses some critical reasoning on our part, and I think it's particularly effective. That's where the state of the art is right now for creating false memories in humans, is doing that verbally or by these manipulations with either what we say, what we show them, what we expose them to. But the chemical implanting of memories has now occurred in monkeys. So in trying to restore memory, there is probably, I would say in the next 2 years, we should see the science experiment come out that says a memory has actually been transferred or created and planted back into a human brain that wasn't done by a classic false memory technique. But I would anticipate that that's the direction the research is going. How do you rebuild memories in people who've had a TBI? Active research is going on about that on nanite reconstruction of brain cells and brain networks. And the idea in the mental health community is people lost part of their brain. We want to restore memory and brain function. Can we put the memories back in? So it's probably only science fiction for another 2 years, given the state of the art and the progress around that. And then, and the last thing I'll say, I didn't have any videos for it. I really wanted to show you one, but the French have published a very interesting paper, and it is this. While people were sleeping, they were able to train them and sample their knowledge in what they trained them in while they were asleep and while they were later awake and didn't know that they'd learned the information. So I'll say it again. In people who were asleep, they were able to tell what people knew around word recognition lists without ever waking the person up. They were also able to train new memory and information outside the person's awareness while they were asleep.
Ew, just look at his smug smirk on his face, like he's really proud of this one. Oh, we should try to find that research paper. That would be an interesting one to look up. If anyone wants to go and find some information on that, send it to me. I'll very be interested.
Where that technology can go is some very interesting places. It would really raise, since I was in the lane of DS&T and we talked about deception and everybody was arguing about how to interrogate people, it raises an immediate question about whether or not you can sample information in people's brains outside of their awareness. The problem with a CAT scan and PET scan, any technologies, you have to have a willing subject. They do need to sit still. If people are asleep and you can begin to sample what their brain recognizes, it offers a number of opportunities at looking at guilty knowledge, brain recognition waveforms, and sampling some kinds of information.
Now, this is making me think of all the devices we have in our house that are listening to us when we sleep. Or if you have a camera on, it's watched, maybe, I don't know if it's watching you sleep, but I'm sure. It's listening for sure. And I know that for a fact because they try to give me to download their apps so they can keep track of my sleep. Why are they so fucking concerned about my sleep and my sleep patterns and what's going on in my sleep? Anybody also curious about that one? Jesus Christ. They are always bald. All right. Almost finished with this fuck stick, and then I've got some other more interesting, well, I don't know how more interesting than this we can get, but some other interesting things.
I don't know how soon it will be when you can link someone's brain to somebody else's while they're asleep, but I would imagine that that can't be far off. I'd probably ballpark it and say probably 5 years. If they have to do the brain implants, we'll know sooner, because I can't see any other reason why DARPA got approval for 500 deep brain implants. I think the next step is going to be a hive brain. It's already been done in rats. You can link multiple brains, and as a hive, they solve problems much faster than the individual rat. So that technology is here. I'm assuming they'll link people who've given permission to link their brains to have a productive life, live in virtual reality, move robotic things. They can probably problem solve. So I think in the next few years, that's what we'll see, is brain-to-brain linking for problem solving, to see if it makes it more efficient. But those are a couple of technologies I wanted to make you aware of. And then you can run away and think about their more direct applications. I tend to think of things from a medical perspective and from an intelligence and information perspective. But it's no longer really science fiction, and most of these fields have moved faster than I actually thought in 2010. The only one has been expanding memory that hasn't moved as fast. But I thought I would share that with you, and that's all I had to say. So thank you for your time. Yeah.
Okay, that's seriously beyond. Yeah. That's beyond. Agreed. What the fuck? Squirrel's World, what the fuck is that guy talking about? Kawinky dink. Okay, so let me now share some dotty dots. Some tabs. Okay, so we talked about some of that stuff. Okay, so let me go. Okay, so now with this, oh, it was down there. Darn it, I did have it already down here. In researching that, now I come to okay. All right, give me a second to get this. Oh, that's what that one was. Individual differences. Fuck. That's a good one. Okay. I could literally go on for hours. But let me do this. So I'll show you some more tabs. And then if you want me to keep going, I'll go into another subject where it's still connected. But it's kind of goes in a different direction, another way to look at it, another thing that's happening. So I found this paper. This is towards a direct brain computer communication. This is from 1973, which I thought was real interesting. So it basically is saying, embedded in this sustained spontaneous or ongoing electrical activity, short waveforms can be found that evoke, for instance, when a brief sensory message like stimulus, such as a brief illumination of the visual field, a light, or a tap in the forearm. These evoke responses are small, a few microvolts, and somewhat buried in the ongoing activity. These characteristics of the stimulus determine the invoke potential waveform together with the stimulus environment. So this article is quite interesting in general. And so if you want to say this, 1973, they were talking about these things. And again, you can go back through mind-to-mind communication used in military experiment, and you can clearly see that there's quite a few. There's one for 2003, 1984, past, present, and future from 1996 rather. Mind wars. This is a war of the minds. They're calling it that, been calling it that. Thought about PSYOP, radio, and the internet compared. That's something that showed up, and I might want to. That's also connected. You ever find that weird when it says these things? When mind meets machine. And yeah, I did that one. Okay, see. This was another one. The coronavirus is the first big test for future tech that can prevent pandemics. So the coronavirus is putting a lot of new tech. It is, and in fact, it is not a virus or a flu outbreak pandemic. They created it, potential fear. I only need to give you the perception of fear, and you will do what I say. When you feel safe, you do what I say. That's what what's his face said earlier today on the other stream. In his talking about human behaviors and human beings and why we act the way we do. And all they have to do is make you feel safe. Come to me. I will help you. And you'll do whatever the fuck they want. They know that. There's tons of research about how we act. You and I might not do that, but we don't matter. It's the group. The hive brain is here. Did you find that interesting too? He says that we're already here. We're doing that. We can do that. So this new tech, they're putting all this new tech. This is in fact infrastructure. I'm reminded of my electric company that sent me a paper. We had a storm and it knocked everyone in our areas power out because so many trees went down that almost everyone in our area was without that electricity for several days. I think we were on 4 days when it finally came in. It was some of the best times of our lives. We had such a good time. But what I got was a letter in the mail that said, "We're sorry, electric company customers, but we have been slacking on our job for the past 5 years." I shit you not. I got it somewhere. I've got it. I saved it because I thought it sounded absolutely ridiculous. I called a spade a spade. I call their bluff immediately. I think they're lying to me. I don't think. I know they are. For 5 years, we have not maintained the tree limbs, and the big storm knocked out a bunch of power lines, and now we're going to fix all of those, and we're sorry. And what happened is that when they started changing them, suddenly the colors and the boxes or the whatever the fuck they call it, I'm not an electrician, were different. They were different, clearly new, clearly different, clearly new. And I thought, I was a controller and I didn't want my civilians or my citizens to know that I was up to no good, then I would hide it in some way. And what's better to hide it than behind Mother Nature? And oops, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And it's an infrastructure move. And that's exactly what I think is going on here. This is an infrastructure move because everyone feels scared and potentially is going to die. And so all they have to do is give you the illusion of, it's a magic trick here, the illusion of death, and everyone will line up. The problem is people aren't lining up. They're not getting $1 million for their things either, which I find the Lucy juice. $1 million? What happened to the $1 million giveaways for the Lucy juice? Oh, surely they didn't watch one of my streams where I said it was against the law and brought up all the information. I just want to say that it was against the law, each and every one of those, according to our lottery and giveaway to the United States government. Those were illegal and yet funded and sponsored by our mayors and governors around the country. But instead of getting them in trouble, they just stopped doing it. Well, it wasn't working anyway. And I want to know, where are the lawyers? How come some goofy girl in South in the South here figured out that that's against the law, but lawyers couldn't do it? I just want to know, where are the psychiatrists? Why aren't they recognizing the amount of abuse, the narcissistic abuse? You sit there and you do this all day long and research and you have degrees in and everything else, and yet you can't seem to put the big picture together. I'm wondering, and that made me think of some other things. AI is being used to study the outbreak spread. It's all about practice. Practice makes perfect. And look at that. It has catalyzed competition for more powerful facial. Why? Because they want to be safe. They want to feel safe. And the China Sense Time now boasts that its software can identify people with face masks on. And on Twitter, at least one company, Markham again Holdings, cited the coronavirus while pushing that its software ability to detect whether people were wearing masks is better than that of the Chinese. Jesus. All infrastructure. Look at that. All practicing. It's clear as day. They're not even hiding it. It's right here. Look, the pandemic has let us track you more. Look at that. They'll be practicing this when they open the airports up. I think they did, was that today or yesterday, 19th there in Europe. They're going to have all these things starting to go in your airports and your COVID passes and all that other weird things they're doing to you. I feel bad. Well, they'll be doing it to me soon too. So my time will come. And anyway, that clearly that's what this has all been about. And nothing else. So now that makes me think of a couple other things. Let's see. That hippocampus he was talking about, where your memory is stored. Go look and see where that is in your brain. Oh, let me just show it to you. Hippocampus, because it's interesting. I want you to see some things about this, because Jesus, if it's not connected, seriously, I don't know what to say anymore. I'm just so blown away by all this. Okay, so the hippocampus, what happens in it? Well, interestingly enough, it looks like a seahorse. Oh my. Does anybody know anything about seahorses? Not to mention that embryos and of any animal also resembles a seahorse. You know, the dragon coming out of the sea, the seahorse, the dragon, the males take the babies. Damage to the hippocampus leads to trouble forming new memories of time or location of an event. Impaired blood flow and the ensuing lack of oxygen in a stroke is one way that it can be damaged. So anybody find that interesting? It's also one of the first regions in the brain to degenerate in Alzheimer's. Peter Thiel, get out of here with your Alzheimer's longevity, fountain of youth research. They want to live forever. They're telling you right there. Their Nobel Peace Prize, they even won a prize for it. Wow. Anyway, John O'Keefe did. Good for you. Good for you, Johnny O'Keefe. Anyway, that's interesting, all bats. And then in one more of these tabs, and then I will take a question. I mean, not a question, but we'll talk about, I think this is the last one as far as this goes. So this is in the Insider, and a sensor injected under the skin, backed by DARPA. Thank God DARPA's here, is meant to spot COVID-19 days. People will put this in their bodies just so that they can get COVID-19 symptoms. They will pay an extra $50 for a pregnancy test that will tell you 19 days sooner. I'm sorry, not 19 days. I'm sorry, it's COVID-19. To tell you, a few days sooner that you're pregnant. And people will line up. They've even got a little computer screen that says, yes, you're pregnant. No, you're not pregnant. Disturbing. Okay, so been going almost 2 hours. And it is 9:00 my time. And I have more that piggyback off of this that include your friend and mine, Billie Eilish, and another rapper named one of our friends here, Lai, shared a video and it got me asking questions. And her name is Lady LaSure. And then Invasion of the Body Snatchers and individual differences and narcissism and what they all have in common. So if you're still interested, I'll keep going. But if there's somebody else better online or you have something else you'd prefer to do, I can end this, or I can end this one and start another one so they're not too long. And I can share the those there with the virtual celebrities and so forth and so on, and the narcissist. Nah, keep going, Ellis says. They do. And it's fun researching because you watch the news. I think what's the most fun for me when I do these is you watch the news and they keep denying so many things. And Snoops comes out and says, no, that's not true. I'll never forget the time Snoops came out at the beginning. There was a rumor going around. Oh, fabulous, Alice. Mine too. So there's a rumor going around that the coronavirus, or the test strips, the test sticks they stick up your nose, they were gathering your DNA. And so, oh my God, people are freaking out. They're getting my DNA. Yes, you can. Yes, anytime. Anyone's always welcome in here to share links, share your channel. We don't have too much. If you're new in here, we pretty much as a group keep out the drama ourselves. We don't respond to them in chat. And we just just kind of ignore them as much as we can. And turns out they don't come around often. So we have a very cool room of really sharing information and bouncing ideas off each other. I'm kind of being a selfish cunt at the moment and taking over my stream, but I needed to get all this stuff out of my head. Okay, so Snoop said this thing is this. No, this is false. This is false. They're not gathering your DNA. Well, it turns out with just a couple clicks of a keyboard, Snoops is not telling you the whole truth. In fact, it's true. They were not gathering information from your DNA with their tests, but what they were doing is if you tested positive, which really just determined how many times that testing facility felt like running the cycle. If you tested positive, they took your DNA. So were the tests collecting DNA? Yes, they were. Yes, they were. They were doing it that way. So whenever I hear these things and they say these things on the news, no, that's ridiculous. Literally, it isn't. And any journalist or investigator or newscaster, or I don't even know, again, where are they? Because I'm not a journalist. And yet I put these things together. I'm not a doctor, and I put these things together. I'm not a narcissistic professional, and yet, or a psychiatrist, psychologist, and I've put them together. We have, all of us. And yet all of the lawyers, not one lawyer, not one psychiatrist, not one scientist, not one is coming out. You hear a doctor come out. Nah, I'm not believing these people. So let me show you why. So I was watching, put this back on my thing. So one of our friends lied to me. We all love lie to me. He played, he shared a video. Let me get rid of some of that. He shared a video by this singer called Lady LaSure, and it was an interesting video. It's something interesting, even more so, happened to me while I was watching it. Because I've also done some research on virtual reality influencers. In other words, fake celebrities, not real people. I do believe that Ultra TV is not real people. I think that is actually a experiment. And I don't know what I believe right now. So you're going to hear me say this is open thought. I'm going to say some really crazy things. But no crazier than what that man just said. Okay. So here is the Queen's speech. This was her second speech. I kind of thought this video was kind of cute, and I'm going to take the risk and play it because one, I think she's really good, but I'll pause it for a second, or maybe I'll just play it. When I was listening to her and I'm watching her, I'm noticing she's not on a real background. It's all CGI or green screen or this, that, and the other. She has a flow about her, a new way of combining words. It's been coming. I'm not saying she's some kind of unique, whoa, my God, I'm not giving her praises. What I'm saying is that she looks like a computer program to me. Now, is she a real girl? I don't know. You might go, I know her. She's real. Okay, maybe. But then I've got some other things and some research that potentially says she's not. Or maybe she's been taken over because there's something else about narcissists that we're forgetting. So let me play this for you, and you guys tell me what you think when you're watching her thing here. Did I make sure I did not forget your audio? Okay. Here we go.
LASIK. Flows tight like a corset. Your weave smells like cornbread. Ugh, I'ma bring it to your doorstep. I'm about to be bigger than your forehead. Your head needs to get sorted. You will get licked down like a cornet. Eyeball, swish, all net. So I don't know who you're eyeballing. Cause eyeball like a bald head. Eyeball, Michael, Gigi Jordan. You want beef? Safe, cool then. You got a team? Okay, call them. And if you want more, I'ma give you more then. Your man goes down south like more than. And he opens his mouth like he's yawning. Ah, he's gorgeous.
That's just about as much of that as I can take for this second. As I'm watching this, just reminded me of someone else. Now, this girl's channel here, Lady LeSure, did some research. I didn't know where my tabs are for her, though, so let me see if I can find that real quick. Yes, here it is. All right, let me switch tabs on you. Let me drop her over to this one, because that one is for all mind control. And now this one is going to give us the Billie Eilish one. Okay. So when you look at, so I got to looking at her. All right. And she reminded me of, she is, so about her. This is the official Lady LeSure YouTube account for Sure Porters, Team LeSure. The first-time listeners, make sure you subscribe to my channel because I'm going to hypnotize you. She's got all these videos. And she does one, she's been on performances, and I'm a YouTuber now. Oh my God. And she does this one, the quarantine speech. This was the one that really.
Crocheting is more than.
That was really the one I saw, the first one I saw. And you can see what I'm interested in. And it just made me ask some questions. I'm just asking questions. So let's watch her quarantine video. And then I'll show you what they have in mind for AI coming up.
There's a war going on outside we ain't safe from. And I hope we don't stay long. Came for my bat and a snake done. Coronavirus is a pagan. Gotta stay safe, cause I ain't dumb. Got the lights so with me, I got my spray on. Can't leave your house for your day job. And some people now are getting laid off. It's mud, everything mud. Everywhere I go, everybody's in a mask. I went Sainsbury's just to get bug roll. All sold out, I'm like, what? No. Cause I ain't trying to see no one. NHS is a mad thing, please don't come. Most food stores for sure ain't got a lock now. Can't go abroad, the schools are on lockdown. So please don't cough around me, keep your salivas. Keep it. Pasta and rice has gone, no hand sanitizers. Try ordering Edison Lee, but there was no drivers.
Okay. I'm hearing a woman who is speaking out against the lockdown, against the masks, and against the Lucy juice and the lockdowns. She's anti-establishment in this video. Not to mention that, half the time, I'm not even sure in her videos, she's just walking around. It's just strange. Okay. So now, go back to, oh, I know what I was going to show you. Okay. Let me flip this over. So I looked up some tabs because I had questions. So her video here, so I looked her up, and you saw in her thing, she sent some things. She's quite popular. I can see why, right? She was born 15th of December in 1988. She's a British rapper, singer, songwriter, and producer. She's all of the above. That's good to note because I just saw something said virtual influencers can sing, write, produce, act, anything your brand needs for them. And what is this woman selling me? She says she's anti anti-everything. She doesn't like the Kardashians or Air Jordans. She's not big into that, and don't wear your mask. But she is owned by RCA and Sony. RCA and Sony. She's a trans, I don't know, she's gay or bisexual or something. She's like they're using her. They're using her. She's like Eminem. She came out as a pansexual. Do you see? I gotta go let my birds in, or go close my birds in. Anyway, she's Sony label. I mean, look at that. Look at that. So these companies are not going to be letting her do this unless there's something she's supposed to be selling. They're not going to let her. They've also quarantine speech, fake flex. I mean, 3M burn. Okay. So that got me questioning some things. All right. So there's someone else that I thought of. I'll minute while I go get my birds. And I'll play the rest of this little video. So I have to walk around. So I'm going to go close the door and lock them in for the night. And I will be right back.
I'm tryna catch some flights, not coronavirus. Oh no, but I would if I could do. Yeah, that's what I should do. Yeah, but I cancel my flights to Miami and Cancun, so I'm not in a good mood. No, don't touch me. Big sis needs an apology, cause I've been on one, like I'm in quarantine. One man had to change up a whole lot of plans. Yeah, when you go by your business, wash them hands. Woo! Wash them. You better wash them hands. Woo! Wash them. You better wash them hands. You better do better. You better do better. You better know better. Social distancing from my friends. I ain't having no one over again. Nah, beg you, Bridget, don't visit. Just me, dog, I can't risk it. I was on the timeline scrolling like, what is this? Not my interest. I can't believe this. What is going on? Mother's Day and I can't see my mom. Pub shut down, now bear man I vex. Gym's closed down, now how you gonna flex? Flare for the wall can't be seen tested, so you don't even know if you're infected. Most think it's a joke that are interested. Still going out, carry on till you get sick. Wait, people are really still going out raving. Huh? That's outrageous. One cough with on your nose, just stay in. The customers got hanging. You don't want to see a paramedic while your way harder than the pandemic. Everybody's in a frenzy and a panic. Can't stop washing my hands, become another. So please don't cough around me. Keep your salivas. Keep them. Pasta and rices, gone, no hand sanitizers. Tried ordering medicine me, but there was no drivers. I'm tryna catch some flights, not coronavirus. Roll up, wash them hands. Wash them. You better wash them hands. Wash them. You better wash them hands. You better do better. You better know better. Trust me, know exactly how you feel. Surf the net and maybe watch a film. Now I got a quarantine to chill. Yo, trust me, know exactly how you feel. Surf the net and maybe watch a film. Now I got a quarantine to chill. On a serious one though, we need to wash our hands more, you know.
Okay. I didn't know what she's telling me. Clearly, I need to wash my hands more. And the virus, I don't know. Either she's pro-virus or not virus. I don't know. It's confusing anyway to think she's real. Now, I know they want to make up this story about her being born, and I don't know. They're going to give me this background information. But and even if I see her, I'm probably going to assume that she's in fact a body double or some type of, I don't know. So with that, I go back over here because while I was watching her and I'm looking at that, her Sony, she's connected to RCA and Sony. She reminds me of another girl that I can't fucking stand, this little cunt either. And I don't think she's real either.
But since I got the key, walking up and down the street, did you think I'd show up and let me see? No.
had to save my money for security. Got a stack of working up and down the street. Says he's saving and he looked at me. I bought a secret house when I was 17.
Okay. I've done a few videos on this girl before. She does some interesting things. She's a millennial. She's a millennial influencer. Don't think she's real. She's also there in the panties and the pants, and she loves her panty pants and their pantaloons and whatever other panty things that she's interested in. But they've suddenly started changing her. They're changing her appearance. Now, why? So Billie Eilish. Oh, she's coming. She's like a savior now. Like she's coming. She's Miss Beautiful. Let me show you her channel. They changed her look. Where's that? There she is. She's happier than ever. And it's coming out on July 30th, the new album. Listen to NDA or DNA, right? What the fuck? Anyway, so Billie Eilish. I don't think Billie Eilish is real either. So here's Billie Eilish. This is just a stock photo, just a computer-generated photo. Remember, they are 400 years ahead of us, or at least 150, because they say 50 years ahead of us technology-wise. That's their words, not mine. And I know that they follow the law of 3, which means you just need to multiply that by 3. And if you don't understand that, then let me ask you, when you have a cop pull you over and they say, how many drinks have you said? And you say a couple, they automatically assume 6. They do the law of 3, which means we can also employ the law of 3. And they are at least 150 years advanced. But see, I think they're smarter than that. Because if I was them, I would have assumed that someone like me would come along and figure out the law of 3 and use it. And so they go, ha ha ha, we're only 150 years. Everyone will think we're only 150 years, when in reality, we're 3 times more than that. Puts us at 400 years, which actually, I'm pretty sure that's probably more accurate. These ancient texts that they have, they lie to us. They've been hiding this information for so fucking long. I don't believe for a second this is the first time they've hooked up some fuck stick to a computer and brain-to-brain interfacing, nor do I believe that Billie Eilish is a human being. Now, she might have been at one point. I don't know about that. I don't know exactly how that works, but I can tell you right now, I believe she's an influencer. She is at Interscope Records. Interscope Records is an American record label owned by the Universal Music Group. They're selling them something. They're selling children something. They're selling them transgender. And that's where they're going to hide transhumanism, just like they're hiding global warming behind natural earth changes. It's no global warming. The earth is going through menopause, because that's actually where the Earth star is in her cycle. If you want more proof of that, I actually wrote a paper on it. So if the Earth is going through menopause, then human beings are going through puberty. And so we're real confused as teenagers about ourselves, and therefore it's very easy to just manipulate everyone. And so here's that. Lady Gaga's there. Of course, I don't think she's real either. I don't know. Nobody knows. These are on TV. They're on a screen. I've never seen these people. And even if you went to a concert, what are you looking at, really? Just ask yourself. What are you looking at? Do you ever see these people outside of a stage or a magazine? Even if they're just 150 years ahead of us, we already see fake. No Justice can make fake videos with a simple little app on his computer. So it's not a stretch, especially since they want to convince me that 1, we can live on Mars. 2, we can find another planet somewhere in the universe where life lives. 3, we can run 5G. I don't know. They have a lot of things. CERN is trying to break open wormholes, and I'm supposed to believe that Billie Eilish is a real person. Like, I can't think she's not. I mean, you do so many other weird things. It doesn't seem like much of a stretch. Yes. So I think they're fake. I don't think they're real. Do you remember, Alice, do you remember the push we had for a while of I don't know how old you are, Alice, but in the 90s, 80s, 90s crossover, I'm a cusper, so 74 for me. So I was heading into my teenage years in the, the crossover 88. That's when I started high school. And there was androgyny. Androgyny was starting to take over the modeling industry. Excellent. Then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Do you remember when the modeling, somewhere in that 80, 90s transition, we started seeing more androgynous modeling. We started to get the men that were kind of cosmopolitan, if you will, the square jaws and the very triangular. And yes, exactly. Yep, exactly. Okay, good. I won't finish then. That's the kind of stuff that it makes me think of. Okay. So let me go back to here. Nope, that's not the one I want to show you yet. That one comes next. Okay, so let me go up here and go down to back to my July. I have this playlist, and it's public. And anything that we've looked at or we talked about or I've researched as far as YouTube that I found interesting enough to share is in this playlist for July. So, and sometimes there's silly things I just think of. I just put them in here for this, but other times they're really interesting things. All right, so I'm going to play this video here. Let me do it with or I can mute my mic and you don't have to hear me. Hello, Vern. Hello, Vern. Yes, we can. With tech, anything is possible. Deception is easy once you can. Yes, beautiful. Once we have enough people to pull it off. Yes. And I love to talk about fear too. So if you are interested in fear, I have a lot to say about that. Wrote some papers on that too. Okay, so here we go with this video.
Celebrities.
And let me show you some of the research that leads me to believe that these people are not real. And now I want to know what they're selling me, because what I'm being sold here is division. I mean, I don't know. I'm asking you guys after you think about this. What is Billie Eilish selling me? Is she selling us suicide? Because that's kind of what the cunt looks like to me. She just looks like I you know what? I'm not suicidal. But whenever I see that little bitch, I literally want to just like stab myself in the eye. There's something wrong with her. Something creepily wrong with that. And I don't believe in demons. So I don't think she's a demon. Okay. It's a mind fuck they're doing on people. And she's part of the program. The fact that the presence on earth and that yes. Oh, you're in such the right place. I'm so excited to have some new faces and new voices. Not that I don't love you guys too, but we've hashed this shit apart for a few months or a year and a half now. It's nice to have some new, some fresh voices. Okay, so this is the future of virtual celebrities. This came out in 2020. This is not the first time. It's actually the third time I've done a discussion on virtual celebrities. And so, however, all of this information is brand new. I hadn't brought you this before. So there's plenty out there describing this. Ultra TV, I think that's the name of it. You know what that channel is? The news kind of greeny hippie dude. I don't know. They believe in spirit. I don't know what the fuck. but I don't believe they're real either, and I never have. And so that's another one that I've picked apart a couple times. And the country that they're from, I want to say it's Yugoslavia, Ukraine, is the country that gets the special pat in the back for virtual reality. So it's quite interesting. That's where they come from. I did do some deep dive research into that. I don't even know where it would be, but I can do it again because it's quite interesting. All right, I'll shut up now. Here is the future of virtual celebrities.
Hello, today I want to talk about the topic of virtual idols. There was a question about these virtual characters that were becoming popular, and we were wondering whether or not they're going to go anywhere. Are they just a fad? Are they something important? So first, let me explain what these virtual characters are, these virtual idols. These are avatars. These are digital characters of people who have a personality, but they don't exist. So they may be looking cartoon-like, or they may be photorealistic, but they're basically CGI, computer-generated characters. But they're created as kind of celebrities, as lifestyle influencers, or maybe they work in a band. They're kind of a singer in a band, and that's where they kind of started in Japan. But now there's Instagram accounts and YouTube accounts following these virtual fictional characters in their fictional lives. And more, these characters take on some of the same activities that human and real influencers do in having lives and birthday parties, and they go out on outings and they eat food and stuff. But of course, it's all fictional. And they have real followers, many millions of real people following them, just as you might follow them on a real celebrity on a TV show, or you might follow a fictional character in a story. So that's today. And I think my short answer about what the future is that it's going to be very, very big. I don't think this is a passing fad. I think this is actually going to become a really central entertainment in the future, when we'll be able to have characters that are increasingly indistinguishable from a real person. And they will have very complicated and influential lives that are being scripted with people who make stories, like Hollywood screenwriters, people whose job it is to make interesting characters. And they will assume a lot of the input that really good storytellers now aim towards movies, of making people with interesting stories that you care about. But instead of being in a movie, they're going to be on YouTube, they're going to be on the news, they're going to be in your account. And instead of completely being scripted in terms of everything they say, they're going to be created as this character with a lot of leeway to say things impromptu, to say things spontaneously, to react and have a conversation. So they could actually really be interviewed by someone like you or me, and they would respond like a real person, but they aren't going to be real. They're going to be a fictional AI construct. And there'll be many varieties of these. Some will be cartoony, literally cartoony, and others will be incredibly photorealistic. They look like humans. And then others are going to be, they'll fill the space of characters that we have in movies. They could be aliens, they could be machines, they could be animals, or some weird hybrid of humans. And so, unlike actual living celebrities today, there'd be a much more diverse group of these characters that we're going to interact with. So there are several things about this. One is, unlike real celebrities, these will be engineered, and they will be optimized for maximum influence and following, which means that they'll be data driven. And so humans often, particularly those who become famous, rebel against having to perform certain things, and they don't. They may get tired of trying to serve the fans or be molded by the fans. But these characters are going to be absolutely molded by fans. And so there'll be enough data generated by looking at the responses of people's engagement to what they say things, that data will go back. And if they're saying things that people like, they'll say more of that. And in that way, they'll be kind of optimized celebrities. And they'll do that in a way that most humans are probably not going to want to be manipulated, but we're going to manipulate these virtual idols, these virtual celebrities. And so this has become a data-driven enterprise where the reactions of other, it's not just those celebrities, but they're going to be looking at all celebrities, and they'll be able to kind of figure out what gets the most reaction, the most watches when a celebrity says things, in the way that AI has actually been extracting what makes a hit song. So you take all the hit songs of the world and you process it through an AI and you say, what do these have in common? And let's produce a new song. Let's produce a new song written by the computer that's based on how all the other bestseller hit songs have done. And that doesn't always work 100%, but it gives a little bit of an edge to the song. And so the song a new song is being created based on the data of all the existing previous songs. That kind of a logic will be used with these digital celebrities, where celebrities does X and Y and it produces this kind of a following or love or adoration or interest. And so therefore we'll figure out how to do more of that. So this will be an optimization of celebrity in a certain sense. It's like the things that celebrities do kind of accidentally or intuitively, there'll be a science behind it. There'll be numbers to suggest that this digital celebrity is going to kind of continue doing these things based on the engagement of the fans. And so this is going to be very, very big. And it's not that people will not know that they're not real. So maybe sometimes there'll be some attempt to try and fake or, pass off one of these characters as a real person. That will happen, I'm sure, every now and then. But just as we kind of admire fictional characters in a movie, even though they're being acted by, masked by actors, we might admire it, a Tony Stark. Okay, so Tony Stark is a character. He's not the same as the actor who's playing him. He's a certain character and personality. And so imagine if that character, to Tony Stark, not the actor, but Tony Stark had a life off screen, or just the life that continued beyond just the movies. And he had a life, and he would go play tennis, and he would interact with so-and-so. Well, those all can be generated in a kind of computer graphic way. So you could see this person, you could have YouTube clips of this person interacting with it, even though he doesn't really exist. You can fake this in a real environment with computer graphics. So the technology that's going to be used is the same thing they're using to make movies, but they're doing it in real time. And just as a movie can have an individual computer generated character in a real street, and you can't tell the difference, this will be the same thing, but it's going to be in real time. So this character is walking down the street looking like he or she is going into Starbucks, having a coffee, sitting down, even though that didn't really happen. It really looks like that. And then the fans maybe says, I'll take some questions from the fans, and you could actually ask that virtual celebrity a question, and they're going to answer it to you. And it looks like they're talking. Their face moves, the same voice. It's a virtual performance. And so that kind of virtual presence becomes very, very powerful. And it's as if that Tony Stark character really had a life. And so it's not just the actor who's now being followed, it's the character themselves. And they will have even more followers than the actor will. And they will have a life, and maybe they have a messy divorce, and maybe they have all these other things, a reality TV show based around them, but none of them really exist. It's all just something that's being computer generated to make it look like it. And so the technology for making these characters look real, having a voice, they can have their own voice that can respond in natural language, and then having a story around them are going to make them very, very powerful, because they will be optimized to really engage us. And it's not completely impossible to imagine one of them running for president, right? Because they will be loved. They can be engineered in a way that no human can actually be perfected to appear to be this ideal person. And of course, behind.
Do you hear what he is saying? Who's to say it couldn't be a president? who's to say it couldn't be a scientist or one of the doctors that comes out supposedly against the Lucy juice, but then we never hear from them again? They just show up once and say, hey, we're trying to kill everybody, and then they just disappear. And they're not been suicided or anything, can't find anything. There's just not speaking loudly. Just curious. You know, you hear them just coming and going just to keep the cycle of division going. Maskers, non-maskers, Republican, Democrat, gay, straight, boy, girl, black, white. It's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. RCA and Sony, RCA and Sony. Maybe it's Inception. Jesus. Anyway, I thought that was beautiful what he said, because there's oftentimes I do not believe that my president is the president. I shouldn't say mine. He ain't my president. He don't fucking speak for me. He cannot be real. He can't. And what really gets me is that not only can he not be real, what's really crazy is that they sold me. I don't know. Maybe he is real, but everyone who voted for him can't be real. How did he, am I living in a country where we really have that many fucking weirdos that they would vote for a baby sniffer? A baby sniffer and a crotch grabber. That's what we got. First we got a crotch grabber, then we got a baby sniffer. The fuck is happening? Anyway, I'm gonna let little what's his name? Kevin Kelly tell us some more. His weird stumbling. Who's Yo-Yo or JoJo? I don't know who that is. He stumbled. Oh, I know. JJ Biden. I got in it. Yeah. You wonder what? Wait, Nelson, I'll get back to you and let you know. Yes, that sounds fantastic. Makes sense with all these. Oh, and another thing. You know how Lady Gaga likes to call all her fans monsters? That was something that was really interesting. First time I think it was on Oprah. I think that's how long I've been paying attention to these little fuck sticks. I think she did something with Oprah one time. And she said, she's been around a while. She said, I call my fans monsters. They're all my little monsters. Well, in this room, we call it like the rotten ones. We make jokes about rotten kingdoms and we knight people and we just are goofy and have fun. We don't believe any of that garbage. We just think it's something goofy because we're human and we're having a good time in here. We're like adult teenagers in here. And so we play, but there's something about that. And when we play, it causes us to have kind of a private language between us. It's one of the things that I find so interesting about human behavior. It's one of my favorite little things that we do is that we love to have private jokes. We love to have something between just us and our friends. And there's a lot of psychology behind that. And in fact, WikiHow, How to Control People, even says, make them feel like they're part of the group. Make them feel like they're part of something. And when you can make them feel like that, they're more apt to do things for you. Like listen to you, buy their albums, or come back and hang out at the Rotten Ranch again for another stream. It makes you feel part of it. You don't want to miss anything. And so they're using that. They're using that just like, we do. But except we're doing it in a normal way, and they're actually taking advantage and abusing us with it. So when they call themselves little monsters, or I was seeing Billie Eilish, she has a name for her fans, and even that other girl, Lucia, has a name for her fans. They all do. They're Biebers. What did Justin Bieber call his little fucking fans? So fuck fans. The Biebers. Believers. Man. Anyway. Continue. Oh, Kevin.
behind it will be a lot of people to make this work, and they are guiding it in some ways. And so I think that this will be a huge entertainment, cultural influence in a way that seems kind of remote now. But in the beginning, this will be a very expensive proposition to generate this in real time, photorealistically. Right now, they're kind of cartoon versions. They look like anime. They look like manga. They're simple, but they already have a lot of followers. There's Instagram versions where they're photorealistic. They have millions of followers. So I think it's kind of expensive, but over time, this will become cheaper and cheaper, and there'll be more and more of these kinds of characters. The last thing to say is that there's also, as I mentioned, if you can make an ideal movie star character, you could also make an alien just as easily. But there's also a way in which you're going to make hybrids where you can take a real person like myself, and I could actually put a filter, a computational filter over me through the lens, where I would look more handsome, or I could change my voice to be lower, or I could improve my looks in some ways that you would think that I was a movie star. And so I could have my same body motions. I could be speaking, but I could have a filter over me that would make me partly virtual. And that's actually happening right now, and it's happening in China, where people who are live streaming have a filter that makes them look more beautiful. And so that is one way in which a real person can be disguised, or a virtual character can be disguised as a real person. So this blending of the two, I think, is going to happen a lot more, where ordinary people are going to take some of those attributes of the digitized virtual idol and celebrity and try and become better looking, smarter. Of course, they're making up their lives anyway, pretending to be happier than they are. But that can be done even more so. So we're going to see more of that.
Where do I see that? Where do we see that showing up? Surgeries. Butt enhancement pants, so you look more like Kim Kardashian. These pants give you a good butt. This bra pushes your boobs up. This. And that's the normal. That's probably just the way of things. We all do that. But here's another one. Oops, I just forgot it. Hold on. Hang on just a second. Oh, remember when all the people that go and get plastic surgery so they can look like a Barbie doll? Michael Jackson would be a good example of this as well. It's actually a disorder. And people that get lots of plastic surgery or try to change their look to look like an anime character. Do you know people are going in? There's actually articles about the percentage of people that are going in and asking for facelifts to look more like anime. And then implants to get big butts and huge hips and whatever they tell you is sexy. Whatever they tell you is the thing. And everybody rushes out to try this diet and try that exercise and do this move and that move. And you can get your butt to look like that, and your boobs to look like that, and your abs to look like that, and your arm muscles to look like that. SpongeBob muscle arms, right? Oh. That's what they're selling you. That's what they're selling you. They're selling you products. They're selling you clothes. They're selling you medications and foods and diets and exercise and gym memberships and all the above. And the clothes to make you look this brand and that brand and be cool.
Where ordinary people are going to be made more like celebrities through this kind of a celebrity filter. And that will probably be a lot more harder to incorporate into the culture than just the outright fictional person, is this kind of personalization. And there's one last thing that I would say about that we could also imagine in the far future, which is that we know from some kind of studies in the universities right now of research labs that if I see a face that looks more like my face, a face of somebody else's, if somebody else's face looks more like my face, I am much more inclined to agree with them or be like them. That's just a biological response that we tend to respond to people that are more like us. And one of the ways is we respond to people who look more like us. Well, one of the things we can do with virtual reality is we can actually, and also this computational photography, is we can actually, in theory, modify someone's face to look like the viewer, even if there's a million viewers. So each of the million viewers would see that person in a different way. They would see a slightly different face of that virtual character. They would see the face modified to look a little bit more like them. So I looked at this virtual Tony Stark. He would have a little bit of my genes, so to speak, in his face. And if you looked at him, he would have a little bit of your genes in the face that you saw. And we would each see in this character a slightly different face that would be more reflective of our own face. And that increases our sympathy and empathy with them. And again, if I was to imagine some kind of a virtual politician candidate, that's what they would be doing, is they would be using that technology so that they seem to be more like you individually. For everybody who looked at them, they would see a little bit of them in them. So that's one of the things that we can do, or that can be done with this technology, is it can be, this digital celebrities, virtual celebrities can be tailored to reflect you and to increase your empathy for them. So that's one of the many things that I think will be done with this virtual celebrities. And I think that's one of the reasons why I believe this is going to be a really big thing in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Oh man. All right. Is this a confession? Yeah. Okay. And I think I had, what was this one? Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to back it up with this one here. This one is Fake It Till You Make It, How to Build a Virtual Influencer.
Influence is big business. Instagrammers, YouTubers, and TikTokers are now considered an essential part of their marketing mix. Now, some marketers want to take the human out of the equation and create so-called virtual influencers. They behave just like regular influencers. They share selfies, they monologue to camera, they create sponsored content. But their images are computer-generated and their words are pre-programmed. To find out more, we've come to the Virtual Influencer Agency in London, where they've created a virtual influencer just for us.
The idea was to create something for the drum which demonstrated how this actually worked. So we together chose a subject, which was environmentalism, and then we analysed about 500,000 conversations around environmentalism, and then analysed different tribes and types of individuals, so both the psychographics, what they're interested in, and from that came up with a personality and a narrative and a story, which is effectively flow. So if you're making it for a brand, then what you focus on is who is the individuals or the type of people that as a brand you want to communicate with. So we find those individuals by doing machine learning analysis. So what we will do is find the types of individuals, understand their age, their psychographics, their demographics. Then we'll do some machine learning analysis, which will go out there and will feed back to us what it is that they're interested in, what kind of content they like, what kind of imagery they like. And then we will use that to inform the type of personality which we will create. Now that personality includes how they look, what their age is, what their background is, what their interests are, and also importantly, how they speak.
What's up guys, it's Will Michaela. Thanks so much for stopping by and hanging out with us.
For Fluorescer specifically, what we'll be doing is doing processing of the conversation and delivering a far more complicated narrative, which is built in a modular fashion against the personality briefs. So right now, you may well find that if you're talking to a smart speaker, or if you're talking to a chatbot on a website, then you'd be coming to the output of some simple natural language processing, which is where we are right now.
The key idea to understand about a virtual influencer is that they're a computer-generated image. They look like a human, but actually they are generated by a machine, by us, and they are crafted in a way to appeal to a particular kind of audience and deliver a particular kind of message. Now, we want that computer-generated image to have a real relationship with real people, but we also want people to understand that this is a computer-generated image. So it's partly entertainment, so suspending disbelief. So when you watch a film, you know it's not true, but you cry when your character gets hurt. It's kind of like that. It's part entertainment, but it's a way for brands to control the content and control the conversation and communicate the messages they want, but have an emotional relationship with their audience.
So when we're creating.
Okay, now that reminds me of a, was it Hulu Will Smith commercial? There was maybe it's not Hulu, something with the Will Smith commercial. That's not it. There's this commercial where he turns old or something. He says, "Look, give me a second, because it's making me think of this thing. Because when they're showing you a virtual reality that you really can tell, but in the movies and stuff, they can show you real." Might have been on Joni Rotten's channel. Shoot. Darn it, I don't have it on this one. It was on probably Rotten Studios. I can't bring it up. Anyway, I'm not going to spend that much time looking for it. Oh, I know. Somebody said a comment up here. This is a good comment. And they have all of this in place. I totally believe this stuff. I don't believe in aliens, and I don't believe in demons. I believe in human beings doing shitty things to people. And, oh, yes, and the less people. Don't forget ex-bootlicker. Their stress reduces your fertility. So all the stress they're putting on these young adults, these our kids, by the way, Gen Y, or Gen Z rather, our kids, Gen Zs, all of the pressures and stresses and everything that the last 2 years, on top of anything else that might be going, but all that right there on global, on mass scale, has sent an entire generation of children who are entering adulthood into a state of panic, stress, where their bodies start to shut down, boil in water, and it equals infertility, because the body's not thinking about having babies when it's worried it's going to die tomorrow. Remember, he said that when the zebra, you're not thinking about mowing your grass and making plans to do that when you're having a car accident. Your body shuts that stuff off. So you got double whammies. So not only they've given you medications that cause you to have infertility, and they've put hormones in your body that fucks with making girls have periods sooner, boys get boobies, and medications that giving boys boobies for fucks. Antidepressant that gives little boys, breasts, as if that's helpful for anyone. That's the sick. They're just hitting them from all sides. Bam, bam, bam. And then the transgender and am I gay? And then literally a first grade bunch of 6-year-olds, my daughter's age, being told about wet dreams with both boys and girls in the classroom at 6 years old. I just saw that. I don't know where that is, but it was disturbing. I saw that earlier last week. Yes, because we are gang stalked. And they're not They're not eating well. They're depressed. They're the highest risk for suicide. And it's all by design. Every bit of it is designed. Okay, Vern, we'll have a discussion on that one day. I'm open to change my mind. I am a girl, and I have the right to change my mind at any given time. But I have also had some very bizarre and unexplainable events happen to me, and I have a different perspective on some of the things. Not only that, but I really am learning and understanding as much as I can how the mind works and operates. And that's what really gives me an insight to how these tricks are done. So including what you might, I'd love to hear your story. We definitely have to talk. You don't have to go nowhere. No judgments here. Okay. So, yes. I'm a lady. I love a good debate. Anyone knows that I do. Okay. So this got me thinking, okay, now let me rewind for a second and let's go back to the lady Lucia, because when I was watching her video, let me go to her channel and pull up a different one. I started having this. This was it. This is the one. This is the one that got me thinking. This one right here. Because let's just say they have these influencers and they produce their own songs. The kids they were showing you there, they have boyfriends, girlfriends. They even talk with each other. These programs talk with each other. And so on your Instagram or TikTok or whatever, they're going to be going out together. Both of them will mention it. They'll talk about it. They're going to have their own. It's like those video games where they have little things that you got, really, if you go all the way back, it goes back to Choose Your Own Ending books. If you want to really lay down some dots to where you can see, where I can see some of the first inklings of video games and everything was those Choose Your Ending books. Do you remember those? Fabulous. You got to be a participant in the story by switching to a different page. And anyway, I was watching this now, and keep in mind that I believe that a lot of the things that we see on the Black Mirror are in fact not real, illusions of reality. All they have to do is convince me. All right, Vern, how do you convince the world there's aliens? Convince an astronaut. How do you convince an astronaut? Show him one. That's all you have to do. That's it. How do you convince the world that there's a war going on? Convince a soldier. How do you do that? You stick him in one, or at least what they perceive as one. War brings in a lot of money, but they don't like to spend money. And I've seen some videos coming out that make me really question if I'm looking at a set or if I'm looking at an actual battlefield. And even if these military personnel, which I do believe are in fact being used and being experimented on, even if they know they're not in on it, they believe that they are in war. They have to believe the magic. The magic only works if you believe it. So they must convince you of it. Then I'm thinking about all the times they have, like, where they might have your kids, if you have young boys, girls too, I suppose, a lot of times at Christmas time, they'll do a thing where they'll have the kids go on a train, and the kids are on the train and they're walking around and checking their ticket. And then 20 minutes later, the kids think they've landed at the North Pole, and they go and they see Santa Claus. And because they're 5 and they still believe in the magic, they tell everyone they went to the North Pole. And with all their heart, they believe that because they were shown that. There's an episode of That's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where they take Dee, sweet Dee, and they convince her that she's funny and she's a comedian, and they swoop her off, and they have the paparazzi, and they get her, and then they put her in a car and they drive for a while. She thinks that she's going somewhere, and she never left the bar, and they humiliate her. This is a pattern of behavior that we've shown over and over and over again. So it's not above anything that humans wouldn't normally do naturally. So when I was watching this thing right here, this video here, the Queen's Speech, episode number 4, she's clearly not got a background behind her. It's green screen, and she appears to be computer generated to me. And the thing is that now I'm going to sound a little nuts bag. So here's where I say open discussion. I went down and saw some of her very first videos, some of her earlier stuff before she signed or before she, whatever the fuck they do. And she looked real. She looked different. She wasn't as polished. And then that got me thinking of something else. That got me thinking of some other ideas, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So let me show you this, and then I'll show you that. You tell me if you think she's a real person, or did they steal her? Because I'll show you something about narcissists. Are they mimicking us? Are they copying every facial feature, every tone in our voice, every outfit we wear, every little fat block here and muscle block there and this, that, and the other? Are they doing a random, when you make a sim or a me? Do you remember the me, the wee me's? And you just let it randomly pick you one. As if it's just a mix up of stuff. And then they just turn her in. I don't know. But there's a lot of reference to things like this. And now that I know they can stick things in my brain and literally get me to do anything, which, by the way, isn't that sinking to the floor? Or hypnosis of sleep, which the opposite of that would be wake up, which Madonna said with her X eye patch on her eye. Wake up. I think she's telling everyone to go to sleep. I think that's the thing. Then I see Parliament walking around, fucking poppies. No, they go, oh, but it's part of they always wear poppies. There's a story attached to the poppies. So you go look at the story and you're like, well, what the fuck? Duh. They want you to sleep. They want you to go to sleep. Sleep with your meditation headphones in, set at the earth 562 hertz. And let him pump more and more and more weird, unconscious, subliminal messages that YouTube sticks in every video. Ooh. All right, here we go. What is she?
Con cú phía trên thành sẵn sàng upload the thing and the flow so cold so random. It's just fantastic. Way too much like a black cat. Why you stop just in the club for? Just that's right. Like yo for my love, yo for my love. And don't tell by the dada. I'm on the road, cover back. Let me take these fans from my dada. Cause this is when I'm I'm a deep show. Cover back.
If they're copying us, they're collecting our DNA, monitoring every fucking thing we do. They're listening to us. They're monitoring our breathing. They're going to put little strips on us so they can make sure we don't get COVID. They can let us know 3 days ahead of time. You have COVID, warning. Your little Alexa is going to go off. Oh, Miss Rotten, your monitor is telling me that you might have a virus. You should seek medical attention right away. Or maybe I don't even have an Alexa anymore. It's just a voice in my head. Because I went and got a bunch of those fucking things stuck up my noses. If they're not going to get you to get the Lucy juice, they sure do want to test you a lot. Phase test. It's my tree frogs and crickets. You know what I mean? Why they want to test so much? And they're testing the young guys too. They're testing the young guys. Generation Z generation is getting tested a lot. Pubs, work, school. What is that about? They sure do want to stick those test things up your nose a lot. Those testy swab things that may or may not contain DARPA gels. I don't know. I've heard rumors. And I'd like to say that sounds ludicrous, but at the same time, of course they do. Why would I not think if they have all the technology, which I researched and they in fact do, they can put all of that stuff. Why was it too hard for you to think that they wouldn't do it and not tell you? Why would you tell the person you're going to kill that you're going to kill them? Hey, would you like me to borrow you a drink? I'm going to murder you later. They're not going to do that. So I started thinking about some things. Okay. So it got me thinking about the mimic. Oh, because they mimic us. The mimic, you know the movie The Mimic? They mimic us. And horror movies. I'm going to do a stream on horror movies so you can see what's going on. What I can tell you, I can predict the future for films now. Superheroes are going out. Superheroes will disappear. And the horror, and that's going to come in because we're moving from elementary school, which is superhero time, junior high, superhero time. And we're moving into high school where we like to go to movies and get scared so we can, put our arm around the chick we're with or whatever. Gets us all excited. It's that pleasure pain system that's in there. You love being scared. That's why you like roller coasters. You're scared to fucking death. You're going to die when you're jumping off that cliff with your bungee cord. And yet it's the best time of your life. It's a pain pleasure system that works in the autonomic system in our body. And then if you continually get hit with stress, that system stops working and you can no longer tell the difference between pain and pleasure. And that's why we're going to see an uptick with weird rapey bondage. And I don't know what the fuck I don't know, but they're going to try to convince you that things that feel good, or that pain is actually something to make you feel good. And that goes into Satanism and sex magic and all their little freaky under the White House sexcapades that they do with each other in the woods, with an owl statue. May or may not have happened. I've heard. And it's all part of that. It's all part of that control.
Sometimes an insect will evolve to mimic its predator. Fly can look like a spider. A caterpillar can look like a snake. The Judas evolved to mimic its predator. Us.
Nobody up there knows about this.
Nobody would. Not until it's too late. These things can imitate us. They can infiltrate us and breed a legion before anyone would even notice.
How could you do this? How could you do this? You take something, you make it like a man. A man who's not a man. Manny! A thing. Manny!
Hey, you tell him, Manny. You tell her because she don't give a goddamn.
Hey.
Your kid's gone.
Shut up.
My legs.
Shut up, player.
And they're both
Shut
talking
the
about
fuck
insects
up.
with lungs.
Shut up.
Fly can look like a spider. A caterpillar can look like a snake. The Judas evolved to mimic its predator.
I'm sorry. They mimic us. Now, if you remember, we talked about the locusts locusts were in the Bible. These were bugs. I'm not saying that there's monsters. I don't believe in such things. But they do have nanobots that can get inside your body and alter your DNA, make you do weird things. And that's not the only reference. There's more. There's more reference because there was Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Do you remember that one?
White bread, 2 scoops of canned fish.
And with Instant Karma, it's the best sandwich ever.
It's a busy lab, Elizabeth. We're not supposed to test flowers. They go to the Department of
I
Agriculture.
know where they go. I think this is our problem. I think it is affecting people.
How?
Look, Alan, I have already said that I'm going to do all of the testing. You don't have to lift a finger. Can I?
You've been consistently late, Elizabeth, and you're behind in your work. So I'll do the test for you.
Thank you.
It'll take 48 hours.
Alan, 24.
I can't understand why you've become so emotional.
And then I thought that was real cute that it looked like that. That's the flower. An Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Ooh. Okay, which that just reminded me of something else. That reminded me of something else because there's another clip in Invasion of the Body Snatchers where he comes home and he finds Elizabeth, right? And she's covered in this weird fiber. She's covered in a weird fiber. Watch this. This kind of silk or spider web or cottony fiber. Look at this. Do you see that? Do you see those fine hairs? Am I confirming? You know what? I'm only bringing the evidence that I can find that they bring out and say, hey, stress causes infertility. So, but we're not going to help you with that. We're going to cause you to be more stressful. And then we're going to sell you dick pills at the gas station when you're buying your cigarettes that we've taxed the shit out of. And by the way, are killing you. All the bullshit. Anyway, I thought that was weird, the little fibers, right? Because, you know, the spider webs reference is there, the cocooning reference is there. And if you remember in iPet Goat, there was that spewgy shit. I did a video, it's just like jizz. The whole video is nothing but sperm every fucking where. It's disgusting. And phalluses and penises, and it's just a penis. But right here, she's got that stuff on her, and it just made me think of those testy swab things and the fibers of the masks and the way they're that netting, that gauze-like fabric. Do you know what I'm talking about? That's what it made me think of. And then, and then there was this scene. This was another one of those movies that I find really really referenceable at the moment. This one seems to be, and that's an interesting comment. This one seems to be one that pops in my mind a lot. A lot.
I always thought the only alien in this high school was me.
Not the case. Who do you think it is? The master alien, the queen bee?
It really could be anyone.
She says, I thought I was the only alien in this school. She says, I thought the only alien in this school was me. And it sounds like the other girl says, is that the gays? or 'cause you're gay, or something like that. I'll play it again. And I want you to tell me if you think that's what she's saying there. I don't have a way of doing like the closed captioning, so I can't do. Okay, there, 333 thumbs up and 11 thumbs down. Good job, illustrated fiction. Okay, here we go. See if you can hear what she says here.
I always thought the only alien in this high school was me.
Not the case.
She says, not the case. Not the case. That's what she says. See, this is why I should go back and listen again. Not the case. And then she puts her hands down in her head, her face there. Not the case. Why would that be? Why would she put her hands down when she says not the case? Have you seen this movie before? It's good.
Who do you think it is? The master alien, the queen bee.
It really could be anyone.
What happens at the end of these stories, Stokely? How does Invasion of the Body Snatchers turn out?
They get us. They win, we lose.
Do we? Maybe we really win. We stand here and look unhappy.
It's because it wasn't Sam. It took away who he was.
Maybe they just bettered who he was. Cleared away his confusion.
She says maybe they knew better who he was and they cleared away his confusion. That's what she says there. She's an alien. Okay. Here is another scene from the film that shows another interaction here.
Certain mesozoan only exists in the kidney of certain squid and octopi. Which doesn't make sense because
This is Ohio.
right. It's a pelagic organism.
What's pelagic? Sea-dwelling organism.
Exactly. See, I don't recognize its surface tissue at all. Casey, I don't want to blow smoke at everybody here, but I think you found a new species.
Yeah, right.
Hey, it could happen. New species are discovered every day. Be so cynical.
Could it be Gnathostimulata?
Nah.
They escaped detection until the mid-20th century.
You just know everything.
I'm a contradiction.
Check the mesodermic follicles on its underbelly.
What does that mean?
It means we gotta call the university, let them take a look. Maybe even get in on some of that federal grant money. Our secret. All right.
Hey, Stokely, maybe it's from your planet.
You would blow me blood apart. Whoa, did you see that?
And just then Usher drops down to look at the bug that the water spilled on. Hey, Dragonfire News. Hey, it's good to see you. Okay. And that made me think of something else. Not to mention it looks, you know, a lot like a little seahorse or a, what's that thing in your brain? They don't want you to know. Made me think of gremlins.
Can I hold him? Sure. I don't see why not. He seems to like it.
Great, thanks a lot.
Sorry. Who's in that jar?
Nothing, just water.
Why is it making that noise?
You know, it's hard to get really weird for me. Okay? Because like he says, and the frequencies, it was in the faculty. I should have let it play more. That made me think of something. The moisture, I know what it was. Okay. So the moisture, I started thinking about moisture and frequencies. That's what he said. He said let me go back to it. Let me just go back to it. And the moisture makes, here it goes.
So you think it's amphibian?
Well, water resuscitated it.
Yeah, but couldn't this kill it? You don't want to drown it.
I'm waiting to find out. It's all right. It's okay.
Okay, now see, do you remember the masks with the little thingies inside? They tried to tell me it was cotton, but they can't really tell me what it is. And I don't understand why the cotton swab and mask companies aren't coming right out and saying, hey, you fruitcakes, there's nothing nefarious in these masks. What you're finding is just part of the process. No, they didn't, though. They waited until Snoops debunked it and some news people came out and had ideas and said, we think it's probably just cotton fibers. And so then they said, oh, that's what it is. They were waiting for somebody to give them a good idea for some people would believe. What a joke. Do you see that? And so I'm thinking, do you see how its little tentacles start to expand out, starts to wiggle and move when it's wet? They start to multiply the gremlins. Gremlins are multiplying. When they get wet, the mucous membrane, a chemical reaction of such. Just asking questions. And then if do you remember this episode of the X-Files where they were in Antarctica and there was a parasite that was taking over people's bodies and causing them to become violent, right? Similar to, but it's a parasite. It's a parasite thing. So let me play that for a second.
Is this you?
Yes.
It's one of them.
No one's been killed since you've been in here.
So?
We found a way to kill it. 2 worms in one host will kill each other.
You give me 1 worm, you'll infect me.
If that's true, then why didn't you let us inspect you?
I would have, but you pulled a gun on me. Now I don't trust them. I want to trust you.
You remember that episode? And this is the thing. This girl here. It's doing her queen's. I just can't help but feel like she's just a mimic. It's a computered mimic. She might have been real. I don't know what they do to the celebrities, but just as I'm watching those clips from Body Snatcher, everything in Hollywood, same people. They want to make you think you could go into Hollywood and become an actor, but that's not true. They don't hire. They don't do that. They don't. Madonna, we were told she was a struggling choreographer in New York City, living on the streets. No, she wasn't. Every time they tell us this, he was washing dishes in the back kitchen, and now he owns a chain of restaurants. He was washing dishes for his brother who owned a restaurant. They never tell you the true story, and then those are the same people that scream white privilege is a problem. You know, the celebrities, the ones who have the ultimate privilege, period, telling me these people want to become you. There's something interesting about egomaniacs or psychopaths or narcissists, which is what all of these people are. Just because I think she's a cute rapper or whatever does not mean that I don't know exactly what she is. And I'm not too stupid to know that Lady Gaga, although I enjoy her shows, I only do so because I understand what they're actually saying. And at least she's somewhat entertaining. So many of them fucking suck as actors or singers. And it's kind of nice. But then I'm thinking, okay. So I'm watching this movie, Bad Teacher, I think it was. My husband wanted to watch it the other night. Let me put it on, Bad Teacher. And it's the acting in it. I felt like this is Carmen Diaz, Justin Timberlake, whatever that guy is from How I Met Your Mother and Saving Marshall. I don't know. These are supposed to be like some of the top actresses and actors of our day. And can I tell you that I felt like I was watching a high school or junior high drama production on a Saturday afternoon because my little brother is in the play. It was bad. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. So at least these fake ones are perfecting humans. Now I'm wondering how many celebrities are exempt. Maybe they went underground. Maybe they were allowed for them to they were taking a lot of blood from Britney, and they sure did want me to know about it. They sure did want me to know. Britney Spears is losing her shit, and we're taking lots of blood from her. And by the way, while I'm thinking of it, when Bill Gates asked for everyone to respect his privacy while him and his husband divorced, I'd just like to know why we didn't. Why did we respect them? Why isn't the public and the paparazzi and the tabloids not going after the information on Bill Gates and his wife? Could it possibly be because they're hiding that thing that's taking place at this moment behind Britney Spears and her mental breakdown? Is that a reason? And not only that, but why did you tell me you were getting divorced in the first place? Like, it's really even any of my business. Your personal life has nothing to do with me. So you would only come, and you're rich. The papers all work for you. So if you could have got divorced and no one known it. First of all, let's just ask this. Why do you need to be divorced? Can't you two just not talk to each other anymore? If you're having such horrible problems, why don't you just move away? Why do two of the richest people in the world need to have a divorce in the first place? They can't just not stay together. I would think if you were a celebrity, you could just break up and not make a public spectacle of yourself. But no, you can't. You want everyone to know your business. Do you know the only people that call me to tell me their business are Mings? People who go through their Rolodex thingy and finding all their friends they can call and tell them the same fucking story from the dog they hit this morning. They're human beings, is what they are. Okay. So I think that they want to be us. I think they're mimicking us. I think they want to be us. I think this is a computer program making this right here. I do not think that any bit of this is real. I don't think she is real. And you can show me her WikiHow Wikipedia page all day long. That still does not prove she's real, because I just heard one guy tell me that they can already do this. And I've already pulled up all of the research and the places that will let you buy one of these things. Wait, did I show you that yet? Oh, no, I didn't. It's still over here. So let me show you this. code not convenient for the team. No, no, there she is. So I'll show you virtual influencers. Virtual influencers, what they are and why your brand wants them. Seems like a possibility of collaborating with robots is not a far-fetched idea. If the presence of robots in our regular life still sounds like utopia, not to me, it doesn't. I don't understand why we're doing the robots still. Well, obviously, obviously the reason they want me to know is because those two are about to have a problem and they don't want to be connected to each other. Now, I don't know which one, but that's the only reason they want to get publicly divorced and make sure that way they can pull that old, here in the next couple of years when some shit goes down, probably because we find out this is all bullshit. They can do that incredible scene where they go, he's not affiliated with me. We were divorced a long time ago. Remember when we came out one time and said, respect our privacy, we're getting divorced. Instead, go harass Britney Spears' privacy. Go fuck yourself. Oh, Jesus. These people are so much fun. If the presence of robots is your utopia, possibly interacting with them on social media is no more far-fetched. And I did a little tab like this where I went through robots make better teachers than you do. And so if you want to check that out, that's on my page. It's one of my older videos. Go to oldest and then start there. In recent years, anyway, what are they? So he told you what they are, but they're right here. You can buy them now. There you go. You can buy them now. For what? Growth. Scheduling your Instagram posts and stories for automatic publishing. Get that Instagram marketing. And so, they're selling it to you. What can you do? Attract new followers. Track your growth. So you hire them and they make you look at that. Forbes loves them. As a brand ambassador, it's my duty to interact with as many of our supporters as possible. Combine allows me to search for specific hashtags associated with the topics of the events I comments on and like them. It allows me to pinpoint specific locations that we want to target. I recommend. Combine. Columbine. And we'll definitely continue to use it. Hey, Brittany. What? Bitch, please. Anyway, it's real. It's real. Okay. Now I'm going to play this. And then I think I'll be done. I think this is my last one for the night. These people want to become you. They really do. They want to become you. And oops. And look at this fucks. Look at this fucking stick. Go fuck yourself in your little Umbro blue. Ooh, look at me. I'm a space astronaut. Oh, pow! And the lights. Oh, amazing. Oh, amaze. Invest in me and I'll make all your dreams come true. It is totally. We could talk about that. We could have a stream about that, okay? Okay. I'm sorry. It's getting late, love. Mental health. It's going to be massive. Yes. And you know what Brittany's doing, Paul? Brittany is bringing it out in the forefront of traumatization and abuse and mental health. And still I'm the only one. And we are the only ones that can see that it's all a big psyop. No one else. Even though that's their job. All right. So this is the narcissist wants to be you. So when I think about narcissism, which seems to be running rampant, and the mimickers and the influencers and AI, and the AI trying to mimic me and copy me, and it's watching my gait, it's watching my eyes, my pupils, my micro expressions, my macro expressions. The cameras can catch everything. The all-seeing eye, it's right. I'm looking at it. It's got one green light and one red light. And then I have something else that's listening to me. And it's putting it into a computer program. There's no person there. There's no person behind the curtain. It's just a machine back there. We're mixing humans and machine, man and machine. Anyway, the narcissist wants to be you. They want to single white female you and become you. And that's what that mimic is. That's what that pattern is, or that symbol, whatever flavor Kool-Aid you want to put on it, where we have all of those between the gremlins and the faculty and the body snatchers and the zombies and you name it across the board. You can think of 100 movies that have that. Even Buffy has an episode where they're taken over. Basically, monsters are taking over from werewolves to vampires. It's a transformation, a changing from one to another. We're going back to an iron, bronze, and copper age. They're putting all these things into our body. We're repeating that cycle again, repeating the past again, but we're going to have a brand new iron age as such, metal age, the age of metals, the age of the combining of the man and the machine. At the time that our planet is transforming into her elderhood, at the same time that the human species is going through puberty. So menopause, puberty, mimicry, transition, alpha, generation Z, generation alpha, X generation, by the way, the X generation or 13th generation. That's the last generation to be human. They said that, not me. Bloomberg said that. Forbes said that. Gen X, my generation, probably yours. We are the last generation to die fully human. If you don't X out now, you have to exit to exist. I pet goat. Behind Alice. Or Eve, or whatever stupid name, whatever they want to put on it. Doesn't matter. It didn't even matter. That whole scene, the most important thing in that scene was the exit sign that lit up behind her. Don't go into the classroom. Leave the fucking school. Leave the school. Don't go into this new age with them. Don't do all that stuff. Die human. That's what we say in here. Hashtag die human. So here's the narcissist wants to be you. They want to mimic you and they want to become you. A controller does. Narcissist, celebrity influencer, virtual influencer, computer program, AI, all those weird scientists that are pulling apart your DNA. They've now completely broken it apart. They know everything about you. They even know how many hairs are on your head. And I was told that only God knew that, which tells me exactly what somebody said earlier. They're becoming gods. How do you become God? You only need two things. First, you have to recreate God's miracles, such as the weather, which they can do. And you have to understand humans and their behavior, which they do. So once you can create everything, then all you have to do is be able to control it. So I need to recreate the miracles. I need to control them. It's all you need to become a god. Two things. You can trace the back. Hey, Steve, I was thinking, I want to become a god. What would I do? And Steve goes, oh, well, you'd have to be able to create that fire over there. Okay. 2 days later, hey, looky here, I made fire. What? Steve, what else can I do? Ooh, you're going to have to fly like a bird. Boop. A few hundred years later, I got an airplane. I got a space rocket. I got a windmill. I got a solar panel. I got a laser beam. Patoo! I got nanobots in my air and chemtrails. And I can make it rain. And I can make it drought. And I can make tornadoes. I can even make tidal waves. And you know how I know we can do those? Because if you ever go to a water park, they make them there. Woo, fun. Might have to recreate. Okay, I'll play this now. I'm sorry. Here you go.
The narcissist wants to be you. I have never seen anyone talk about this topic, but this is definitely something that I have noticed in my own experiences, where the narcissist has tried to be more like me. When the narcissist first meets you, they are in awe of your qualities, abilities, and talents. They admire them. They are amazed with everything that you are. They even feel this urge to become more like you, to adopt some of the same qualities, abilities, and talents that you might have. In my own experiences, I noticed that narcissists would try to become more like me. They would engage in the same interests and activities that I enjoyed. They would like the same cars or clothes. They would take an interest in veganism. They would listen to the same music, to the point where it almost became an obsession. But this is just what narcissists do. This is what a narcissist is. At a young age, they accepted that who they really were was not enough. They abandoned their true self and created a false self who was everything they wished they could be. This false self is constantly changing. It is always adapting to whoever it is around or whatever environment it is in. Whatever will make them appeal to those around them. Because all they're really looking for is attention and admiration. Narcissistic supply.
What is codependency, and what does that actually mean? Most people think codependency is due to
They want to feel like they are worth something. They want to feel like they are enough. And when they look at us, we look pretty appealing. They like what we're about, so they desire to be more like us. They feel like what they're doing isn't really working. It isn't getting them the supply that they need. So they begin to mimic us. They become an imitation. They observe what we are doing, and then they try to replicate it. But it isn't real. And it was never what they were really about. They've just imitated us in an attempt to get the attention and admiration that we receive. But by doing that, they have then abandoned their own identity. They have lost who they really were. And now, they're nothing more than a second-rate version of who you are. They're like a bargain store version of you. Because you're the real deal. You're the original. They're just trying to be you. And by doing that, they end up losing who they really are. Which is where their true power was anyway. But by trying to be you, they have lost their true power. And now their survival depends on seeking attention and admiration from the people around them. By trying to be a second-rate version of you. And this isn't just something we're seeing in narcissists. This is so common these days. So many children these days lose their identities at a very young age. From watching their favorite celebrities, whether it's Kylie Jenner or Justin Bieber. They want to be more like them. Because they see that they're getting a lot of attention. And maybe these children never got the love and attention that they needed from their parents. And maybe that's why they felt the need to become more like a celebrity instead of being who they really are. You've only got to look on social media to see that everyone is just an imitation of someone else that they admire. They're not really being themselves. And they may think that it's working for them. They may think that they're getting more friends. They're getting attention from the opposite sex. But none of those people really know who you are. Because even you don't know who you are anymore. When you've abandoned who you really are to become an imitation of someone else. It's just fake attention. Fake admiration. Because it has nothing to do with the true character and personality. But that's just how it is these days. There's no value in authenticity. It's all about how many likes you can get. It's all about the attention and admiration. People will even go under the knife, just become more like a celebrity they admire. Because they really see no value in who they are. They believe that they're not good enough. So they try to imitate someone else. Because they think that will get them the attention and adoration they needed. But even then, no one's really admiring them. They're just admiring who they think they are. So it's all fake. Their entire lives become a lie. Every friendship, every relationship is built on a house of cards. Which means that it could collapse at any moment. Because it isn't real or genuine. It's built on lies and fabrications. It has no foundation. It has no underlying basis or principle. It has no real meaning or purpose. Other than someone just trying to use a situation to get what they want. Someone who's just concerned with their own advantage or pleasure. Which is very narcissistic. And can only result in failure in the end. Because it was never real or genuine. It was built on lies and fabrications. If you want to build something real and genuine, it has to be generated from within. Your worth has to come from within. You have to believe in yourself. before you expect anyone to believe in you. You can learn from other people. You can let them inspire you. But you cannot be someone else. And you shouldn't try to be either. You were put on this earth to be you. And that's where your true power is. You are enough just as you are. You just have to realize it. And not listen to anyone else who tells you otherwise. Because anyone who tries to make you believe that you're not enough hasn't realized their own power. And you may not see it, but they're probably trying to be someone else. Because they believe that they're not enough. You have to be real with people. You have to present who you really are and what you're really about. Some will resonate with you. Some won't. That's life. But it does not mean that something is wrong with you. You cannot please everyone, and you shouldn't try to. All you can be is who you are, and you shouldn't try to be anyone else. If someone doesn't accept you as you are, then maybe that friendship or relationship just isn't meant to be. But it does not mean that you need to change who you are or what you're about just to please them. You should only change yourself if it's something that you want to do. If it's something that truly resonates with you. It has to come from within, or it will never be a permanent change. It will just be something that only exists on the surface. Because it's not something you're really about. It's not something that really resonates with you.
Serial procrastination is something that affects 80% of the population. Even high-performing, intelligent...
In this life, we can only be ourselves. You can try to be someone else, but you will never succeed. And people can try to turn you into someone else for their own agenda, but they will never succeed either. So while the narcissist may want to be you, they will never be you. They will only be a second-rate version of you. It's superficial. There is no underlying support or foundation. So it will crack under pressure. It will never last. It will never withstand the storms of life. And it will only result in disaster in the end. Thank you for watching. I hope this video resonated with you. Please like, comment, share.
Okay, I'm gonna do this and then I'm gonna end this. Okay. Loss of identity. This is psychology and self-healing. 7-minute read. Loss of identity and narcissistic relationships. Who am I? Still you, just like he said. During or at the end of a narcissistic relationship, you can turn and look at yourself and see nothing but an empty shell. You can find yourself in a situation where you no longer know what you want in life, what you like, what you think, or even what you feel. You look like an unrecognizable face in the mirror and you ask, who am I? I know this experience quite well. Quite well. And this is not some temporary identity crisis. Perhaps you can't even remember what kind of person you were before the narcissistic relationship. Perhaps if you grew up in a narcissistic family and never truly knew what kind of person you were in the first place. Or you could only describe yourself with surface level titles like I'm a good spouse, parent, student, worker, woman, man, etc. And everything related to your soul and personality could be consisted of other people's opinions on you. If you started to give too much control to the narcissist, even when it comes to important matters in your life, if you're more concerned about how the narcissist might feel about it when you make those certain decisions, if you're having trouble recognizing and describing yourself in your own words and feelings, if you're not sure what desires or aspirations are, if you constantly feel like you're wearing a mask in an attempt to please others, you're likely to be suffering from narcissistic identity loss. Okie doke. All right, so how does a loss of identity work? How can narcissistic abuse or controllers, the NHO, the New World Order, abuse cause that? What traits we possess leave us vulnerable to threat, and what should we do in order to regain our identities? We just spent 3 hours and 49 minutes talking about the very traits that humans, and earlier today did another 3 hours where I talked about the very things they're exploiting in us to create these psychological problems so that they can take advantage of it later and suck us dry like a leech of all of your money, of all of your blood, of all of your DNA, any value you have. See, they've already sucked it all out of the planet. They've already learned about what does what, and they got the periodic table, and we're making fruit with no seeds. And now they want to work on you. It's your turn. It's human's turn. And if you notice and remember earlier, that guy could not say human. He could say human animal. The human animal. Both in the animal and in the animals. Fuck you. I heard that. I smelt you lay that one down. I did. Stank. Jesus. Anyway. Well, this has been a lot of fun. And I gotten a lot of this out of my brain for now. And I'm sure this will all mull around in it for the next 2 days. And then I'll be back with some other things. Meanwhile, if you do find anything across or know of anything that you find interesting that goes along with the things that we're talking about, you can send it to me. I'll send my email, or you can post it on any links. But I know sometimes that don't work. So I'll put my email in the chat. Oops. And so, we can try to put together some topics, and maybe we can look at some other things and just start putting some more dots together. I just really like it when I have a logical explanation for what's happening in the world. And this all seems much better, minus, the aliens and the demons and stuff. Okay, y'all have a good night. I will see you later. And I'll leave you with a song. Well, not a song. I'm going to leave you with my public service announcement. Here it is.
This public service announcement is brought to you by Rotten Studios. Remember, no contact is the road to freedom.